My mother-in-law went on a rant when she heard we were adopting. She said she couldn't bear the idea of Nancy's biological child being her first grandchild. She even suggested divorcing my husband and then adopting, or sending the child to foster care. But I'm Nancy, and I won't abandon my brother-in-law's child just to please her. So fine. I'll do what she wants. I'm 45 years old and recently moved to the countryside, where I used to live as a child. With remote work being so common now, I can live wherever I want. My allergies were awful in the city, but they've calmed down here with the cleaner air. Country life might not be for everyone, but it suits me just fine. Sure, the nearest supermarket is far and the houses are spread out, but I love the open space. I used to think city life was a pain when I was in my late 20s. Back then, I had just married Ken, and we were really close. But there was a big problem. Ken's mom was way too attached to him. It makes sense, since he's her only child. She'd call his work just to talk to him, and she'd hassle his girlfriends like crazy. She did a lot of weird stuff out of love for her son. Ken was really bothered by her when we were dating. He kept me a secret from her to protect me from what he called the evil queen. He was worried she'd treat me like she treated his exes. But once we got married, I couldn't stay hidden. Ken finally told her about me, and her reaction was intense. I heard her on the phone saying, "Let me meet her. If she's no good, I'll put her in her place." She must have felt shocked. She thought her son was all hers, and then suddenly there's a new woman he wants to marry. Why did I marry a man with such a mother? Simple. I loved him. That was the only reason. When I was sick, he'd take care of me, making me porridge and shedding tears at sappy movies. He even helped lost kids find their parents, even if it meant being late for our plans. He might not always seem competent, but deep down, he's really kind. That's what I adore about him, and why I wanted to be with him. So no matter how difficult his mother might be, I was ready to face her. Loving couples overcome obstacles, and in the end, they live happily ever after. That's the classic tale. But don't worry. When I met her for the wedding, she immediately threw a vase at me, shouting, "You thief cat." Can you believe people actually say thief cat? I was prepared, but her attack caught me off guard. A woman who never acknowledged me during our dating days didn't seem fit to judge. My son deserves someone better. I won't accept an orphan as my daughter-in-law, she went on. Yes, it's true. I don't have parents. My dad passed when I was in high school and my mom died when I was 20. I don't come from any special background, and by the time you hit your 40s or 50s, most people have lost their parents. Using that as a reason to disapprove of our marriage was just wrong. Luckily, my father-in-law stood up to her. You can't judge someone's character just based on their past. It's rude. Ken is old enough to make his own decisions. Just let him marry, he argued. But my mother-in-law isn't one to easily listen to her husband. In the end, she never officially accepted our marriage, so we secretly tied the knot on her father-in-law's advice. Even if we waited forever, she'd never give her blessing. I wanted to be with my husband in this life and the next. But that didn't mean I'd give up on our marriage in this life. I was ready to live as a married couple without ever telling my mother-in-law. A few months after we got married, we unexpectedly ran into her while shopping. Both of us proudly wore our engagement and wedding rings on our left hands. We were completely wrapped up in our newly bliss, happily strolling hand in hand while shopping, much to my mother-in-law's annoyance. She instantly caught sight of our rings and erupted into a tirade right there in the middle of the supermarket, oblivious to the curious glances from other shoppers. It turned out she'd been told by my father-in-law that we had called off our marriage and broken up. Neither my husband nor I knew about this story. Apparently, my father-in-law had shared it on his own. Feeling betrayed by both her husband and her son, my mother-in-law was livid. While I understood my father-in-law's intention to protect us, I couldn't help but regret not coordinating our story better to avoid such an easily uncovered lie. It must have hurt her deeply to be deceived in such a way. Her grip on my husband tightened, and despite his attempts to distance himself, she refused to let go. She began showing up at our doorstep daily, and eventually she moved in without so much as returning to her own home. Why did we allow her entry, you wonder? Well, each day she'd ring the doorbell, shouting through the thin walls, "Let me in. Are you planning to leave me out in the cold?" We had no choice but to let her in, at least temporarily. We attempted to remove her from our home several times, but she would always go to the police, claiming, "My son and his wife kicked me out." Feeling sympathetic toward the authorities, I decided to handle this family matter privately, although I had no clue how to deal with it. Despite numerous arguments and my husband's repeated demands for her to leave, she stubbornly refused. In fact, she seemed to relish the idea of being disliked. If she could wear us down and make us give up, it would be a victory for her, so she put all her energy into it. Her harassment toward me escalated. She would throw away my things without asking and ruin my cooking by pouring vinegar into it, making it inedible. These were just the beginning. What shocked me most was the garbage she left out. I discovered bags marked with "stupid" at the collection site. When I turned them around, I found "Nancy Thief Cat" written on the other side, forcing me to flip them again. At first, my father-in-law would visit daily, hoping to take her home, but eventually he stopped coming. My husband, too, became too busy and exhausted from arguing with his mother. Instead of insisting she leave, he started ignoring her. He even told me, "Don't bother cooking for my mom. Pretend she's not here." It was disheartening to see my kind husband pushed to this point, a testament to my mother-in-law's tenacity. Initially hurt by her son's neglect, she seemed determined to drive us apart. She shamelessly continued living in our home. Then one day we received devastating news. My brother and his wife had tragically died in a car accident while out with their family. Losing my supportive brother and kind sister-in-law was incredibly painful. But I couldn't afford to just wallow in grief. They left behind a 5-year-old son, Kyle. At the funeral and wake, relatives were passing around responsibility, asking, "Who will take care of him?" Nancy would be the best option. But what if Nancy refuses? Despite feeling somewhat distant from these relatives, their callousness was unsettling. I had always cherished Kyle as my first nephew and felt a strong bond with him, wanting to care for him if possible. But I worried about the impact on him of losing his parents and then being taken in by his aunt and uncle. Most importantly, I feared my husband's reaction. However, before I could even broach the subject, my husband said, "If Kyle doesn't mind, let's take him in ourselves." Kyle expressed his desire to live with us, so I decided to formally adopt him as my son. What about this child? On the day I brought Kyle home, my mother-in-law stared at him expressionlessly. My husband stayed silent, so I spoke up. "He's my nephew. We're going to raise him as our son." With the knowledge of my brother and his wife's passing, my mother-in-law seemed to grasp the situation from just that one sentence. "You're bringing in that child?" she questioned. "Yes, we're moving forward with the adoption process." Adoption, can you believe it? That child is Nancy's blood relative. I can't bear the thought of such a child becoming my first grandchild. Get a divorce and then adopt him, or better yet, send him to a foster home. Suddenly, my mother-in-law erupted in anger, leaving poor Kyle bewildered by her outburst. "Why do we need your approval to care for this child? Please don't meddle in our marriage." "Absolutely not. That child will become my first grandchild, right? A child who doesn't share a drop of Ken's blood. I will never accept that," she declared, hurling the remote control at us. In an instant, my husband rushed to shield Kyle from the impact. "Kyle will simply be our adopted son, and nothing changes between him and you," I reassured her, but it felt like speaking to someone who refused to listen. "She's not against Kyle being adopted. She just can't stand the fact that we're still married," my husband muttered, his tone filled with frustration. "Well, if that's what she wants," my husband and I nearly said simultaneously that day, understanding that staying in that house wouldn't be good for Kyle. We decided to leave and move to a hotel. It's frustrating to have to leave our own home, but it's for Kyle's well-being. We see it as a temporary inconvenience until we can finally find a way to remove my mother-in-law from our lives for good. A week later, my husband and I finally returned home. It seemed even my stubborn mother-in-law was concerned, as we hadn't been back for a while. There was a moment of relief on her face when she saw us, followed by a smile. It seemed she was pleased that Kyle wasn't with us. "You've given up on the adoption," she said cheerfully. Neither my husband nor I replied as we quietly made our way to the living room. "You two went ahead with a marriage against my wishes, and now an adoption. That's just absurd. But at least you've come to your senses," she muttered to herself. My husband sat silently, taking several pamphlets out of his bag and laying them out in front of her. Choose any place you like, he said. She was taken aback by the pamphlets and my husband's words. What's this? What do you mean? You told us to choose between divorce or a facility, correct? Well, we've chosen a facility for you, my husband and I said with sly smiles, causing her expression to stiffen. She looked at my husband in panic, but he responded coldly. Do you think we're joking? I'm dead serious. I'm only in my 60s. I can't go to a facility. And remember how you hid my belongings, despite me telling you not to. I added. She didn't know how to respond to my accusation. That was just a mistake. It's a sign of dementia, she stuttered. Also, you always make a mess of the room after I've tidied it up, my husband chimed in. Her expression tightened. I'm getting older, so that's not acceptable. It could be an early sign of dementia, losing the ability to tidy up or starting to collect junk. And Mom, you've been hoarding items from that pop star. Those are just useless junk, right? I remarked. Well, that's another sign of progressing dementia, my husband chimed in. As we confronted her, she burst out, What's gotten into you two? You gave us the choice between divorce or a facility, so we chose the facility. Right on cue, the doorbell rang. Looks like they're here, my husband said casually. I nodded and hurried to the door, where my father-in-law stood waiting. Sorry for the delay, he apologized. Observing the scene, my mother-in-law looked bewildered and asked, Why is he here? With a mischievous grin, my husband quipped, Since it was either divorce or a facility, let's go with divorce. Caught off guard by my father-in-law's sudden mention of divorce, she was left speechless. Nobody specified whose divorce or whose stay in the facility. We decided it's your divorce and your move to the facility. Why do I always end up being the scapegoat? She muttered as my father-in-law began to argue, insisting that she wasn't at fault. My dear, it seems you've abandoned everything, including our home, and caused nothing but trouble for our son, my father-in-law scolded. I've repeatedly told you to come back home, stop bothering our son, and take care of the house. What are you saying, acting like some old-fashioned dictator? Take care of the house yourself, she snapped. Of course I am, but you've taken on too much, like all that community work, right? Your absence has left the house empty, and now I'm left handling everything. Naturally, I have complaints, my father-in-law fired back. Yes, my mother-in-law, who once relished being a stay-at-home mom, seemed to have overloaded herself with community responsibilities, like paperwork and event planning. Since she started neglecting her duties at home, I chimed in. Not wanting to burden the community association, my father-in-law has been struggling to juggle both his job and the tasks she left unfinished. He stopped fetching her because he got too wrapped up in community affairs, my husband explained. I'm exhausted by all this. It's becoming overwhelming. You need to choose between divorce or going to a facility, I asserted. This can't be right. I'm not the one at fault here. I won't go to a facility, and I don't want a divorce. It feels like everything might fall apart just by being around you, she protested. Seeing my father-in-law's exhaustion, my mother-in-law seemed to realize that it was all coming to an end and simply hung her head. You've been plotting to divorce us, but you should cherish your husband. He's a human being too, and he might just divorce you. Oh wait, he is divorcing you. I chuckled. This must have irritated her, but she remained silent. Perhaps she no longer had the energy to argue. And so my in-laws divorced, and Kyle officially became our son. As we proceeded with the divorce process, my mother-in-law returned to her marital home. Meanwhile, my husband and I moved secretly with the assistance of my father-in-law. As of now, she hasn't been able to locate us. With limited finances and little knowledge of the internet, it's doubtful that my mother-in-law could track us down out of state. However, since the property originally belonged to my father-in-law's family, she was swiftly evicted and divorced. Apparently, during the chaos of the divorce, she had pleaded with my father-in-law not to divorce her, even begging on her knees, claiming she didn't want to divorce at her age. As a homemaker, she had no savings. She attempted to claim a portion of the assets, but since there wasn't much to begin with, she has been struggling to make ends meet on her own. Despite needing assistance, both my father-in-law and husband have distanced themselves from her. She attempted to rely on a distant cousin she hadn't been in touch with for years, only to be turned down with the explanation, "We can't afford to support another adult. You need to fend for yourself." She should seek employment instead of relying on others, but she has yet to do so. However, I'll keep that observation to myself. In the meantime, my husband and I have welcomed a daughter, Camila, into our family, and Kyle is thriving in his new home with us. Camila grew up believing Kyle was her biological brother until she reached junior high school. Although we've since revealed the truth to her, their bond remains unshaken. Kyle plays various roles in Camila's life. Sometimes a brother, sometimes a parental figure, always watching out for her. When a neighborhood boy bullied Camila in elementary school, it was Kyle who rushed to her aid first, not us. If Camila ever decides to marry, I'm sure Kyle will be even more discerning of her potential suitors than my husband. Kyle, who initially struggled to express affection, now affectionately calls me Mom and has grown particularly close to my husband, spending weekends fishing together. Honestly, I can't help but feel a twinge of envy at their bond. Kyle is the cherished child left behind by my dear brother and his wife, and I'm committed to nurturing him as my own for the rest of my days. Now, let's take a look at what the boys have caught and whip up a delicious dinner with my daughter. I'll put my homemaking skills to the test and impress everyone. Just kidding.
I stared at the text message on my phone, my hands shaking. The words blurred as tears welled up in my eyes. This couldn't be happening. Not to me. Not after 10 years of marriage. Sarah, honey, are you ready to go? Jacob's voice called from downstairs. I quickly wiped my eyes and took a deep breath. Just a minute. I called back, my voice surprisingly steady. As I descended the stairs, I saw Jacob standing by the door, keys in hand. He smiled at me, that same warm smile that had made me fall in love with him all those years ago. But now, it felt like a knife twisting in my gut. There you are, he said, leaning in to kiss my cheek. I turned my head slightly, and his lips grazed my ear instead. If he noticed, he didn't show it. We don't want to be late for the Johnsons' anniversary party. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. As we drove to the party, Jacob chatted about his day at work, oblivious to the storm raging inside me. I half listened, my mind replaying the message I'd received from an unknown number. Your husband is cheating on you with me. I'm sorry, but you deserve to know the truth. At the party, I plastered on a smile and made small talk with our friends and neighbors. Jacob's hand rested on the small of my back, a gesture that used to make me feel loved and protected. Now it felt like a brand of ownership. Sarah, dear? Mrs. A. Johnson approached us, beaming. So good to see you both. 40 years of marriage, can you believe it? I felt Jacob's chest rumble with laughter. Maybe we'll make it there someday, right, sweetheart? I looked up at him, searching his face for any sign of guilt or deception. But all I saw was the man I'd loved for a decade, smiling down at me with apparent affection. Excuse me, I mumbled, suddenly needing air. I made my way to the back porch, gripping the railing as I tried to steady my breathing. Are you okay? A soft voice startled me. I turned to see Olivia, the Johnsons' daughter, looking at me with concern. She was in her mid-20s, with long blonde hair and bright blue eyes. I'm fine, I lied. Just needed some fresh air. Olivia nodded, joining me at the railing. It can get a bit stuffy in there, can't it? All those happy couples. She trailed off, a wistful look in her eyes. You're not seeing anyone? I asked, grateful for the distraction. She hesitated, then shook her head. It's complicated. There's someone, but he's not available. My heart skipped a beat. Oh, I tried to keep my voice casual. That must be difficult. Olivia sighed. It is, but he says his marriage is loveless, that they're just going through the motions. He promises he'll leave her soon. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I gripped the railing tighter, my knuckles turning white. Olivia, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, who is he? She looked at me, confusion clouding her features. I can't say. It's not my place to. Sarah? Jacob's voice cut through the tension like a knife. We both turned to see him standing in the doorway, his eyes darting between us. Everything okay out here? I looked at Olivia, saw the guilt and realization dawning on her face. Then I turned to Jacob, the man I thought I knew better than anyone in the world. No, I said, my voice growing stronger with each word. No, Jacob. Everything is not okay. I stood in our kitchen, my hands gripping the edge of the counter so tightly my knuckles turned white. Jacob paced back and forth, his face a mask of guilt and defiance. How could you? I whispered, my voice trembling with anger and hurt. 10 years, Jacob. 10 years of marriage, and you throw it all away for what? A fling with a girl half your age? Jacob stopped pacing and faced me, his eyes pleading. Sarah, it's not what you think. Olivia and it just happened. I never meant to hurt you. I laughed bitterly. Oh, you never meant to hurt me? Is that why you told her our marriage was loveless? That we were just going through the motions? His face paled. You talked to Olivia? I didn't have to, I spat. She told me everything without realizing who I was. God, Jacob, how could you be so cruel? He reached for me, but I recoiled. Don't touch me, I hissed. I want you out of this house, now. Sarah, please, he begged. We can work this out. I'll end things with Olivia, I promise. Just give me another chance. I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. There are no more chances, Jacob. You've broken something that can't be fixed. As Jacob packed a bag, I retreated to our bedroom, my bedroom now, and collapsed on the bed. My whole world had shattered in the span of a few hours. How was I supposed to move forward from this? With shaking hands, I reached for my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in years. Hello? A familiar voice answered. Charlotte? I choked out. It's Sarah? I need you. An hour later, I was sitting on Charlotte's couch, a steaming mug of tea in my hands. My old college roommate and best friend listened intently as I poured out the whole sordid story. Oh, honey, Charlotte sighed, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. I'm so sorry you're going through this. What a bastard. I leaned into her embrace, grateful for her unwavering support. I just feel so stupid, Charlie. How did I not see it? Hey, none of that, she said firmly. You are not stupid. Jacob is the one who made the choice to betray you. This is on him, not you. I nodded, wiping away fresh tears. What do I do now? I can't imagine going back to that house, sleeping in that bed. Charlotte squeezed my hand. You stay here with me for as long as you need. We'll figure this out together, okay? As the days passed, Charlotte became my rock. She helped me navigate the murky waters of separation, accompanying me to meet with a divorce lawyer and standing by my side as I packed up my things from the house I'd shared with Jacob. One evening, as we sat on her balcony watching the sunset, Charlotte turned to me with a determined look in her eyes. Sarah, I think it's time you started focusing on yourself. What do you want for your future? I blinked, realizing I hadn't thought beyond my pain and anger. I don't know. My whole life was wrapped up in Jacob and our marriage. Well, now's your chance to rediscover yourself, Charlotte said encouragingly. What about your career? You've always loved teaching. Maybe it's time to pursue that advanced degree you've been talking about? A small spark of excitement flickered in my chest. You're right. I've always wanted to become a reading specialist. Maybe this is my opportunity to make that happen. Charlotte grinned. That's my girl. You're going to come out of this stronger than ever, Sarah. I just know it. As we clinked our wine glasses together, I felt a glimmer of hope for the first time since my world had fallen apart. But just then, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Jacob. Sarah, we need to talk. There's something you should know about Olivia. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. What more could he possibly have to say? And why did I have a sinking feeling that my journey through this mess was far from over? I stared at the divorce papers on the kitchen table, my hand hovering over the signature line. Charlotte sat beside me, her presence a comforting anchor in the storm of emotions swirling inside me. You don't have to do this today if you're not ready, Sarah, she said gently. I took a deep breath. No, I need to do this. It's time. With a trembling hand, I signed my name, officially ending my 10-year marriage to Jacob. As I set the pen down, a mix of relief and sadness washed over me. I'm proud of you, Charlotte said, squeezing my shoulder. This is the first step towards your new life. I nodded, wiping away a stray tear. You're right. I can't keep living in the past. It's time to focus on my future. The next day, I walked into the elementary school where I taught, my head held high. As I passed the principal's office, a voice called out, Sarah? Do you have a moment? I turned to see Principal Roberts beckoning me inside. Curious, I followed her into her office. I heard about your situation, she said, her eyes filled with sympathy. I'm so sorry you're going through this, but I have a proposition that might help take your mind off things. My interest piqued. What kind of proposition? We're starting a new reading intervention program next semester, she explained. I know you've been interested in becoming a reading specialist. Would you like to lead the program? My heart raced with excitement. Are you serious? I'd love to. Principal Roberts smiled. Excellent. It will require some additional training and certification, but I think you're perfect for the role. As I left her office, my mind was buzzing with possibilities. This was exactly the kind of challenge I needed to help me move forward. Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into preparing for my new role. The extra work was exhausting but exhilarating. For the first time in months, I felt like I was truly living for myself, not just going through the motions. One evening, as I was leaving the school after a late planning session, I quite literally ran into someone in the hallway. "Oh, I'm so sorry," I exclaimed, bending down to help gather the scattered papers. "No worries," a deep voice chuckled. I wasn't watching where I was going either. I looked up to find myself face to face with Michael, the new fifth-grade teacher. His kind brown eyes crinkled at the corners as he smiled at me. "Sarah, right?" he asked. "I've seen you around, but we haven't officially met. I'm Michael." We shook hands, and I felt an unexpected spark at his touch. Flustered, I quickly changed the subject. "What are you doing here so late?" I asked. He held up a stack of papers. "Grading never ends, does it?" "But I could ask you the same question." I explained about the new reading program, and Michael's eyes lit up with interest. "That sounds amazing," he said enthusiastically. "I have a few students who could really benefit from something like that. Maybe we could grab coffee sometime and you could tell me more about it?" I hesitated for a moment, my recent heartbreak making me wary. But something about Michael's warm smile and genuine interest made me nod. "I'd like that," I said softly. As I drove home that night, my mind was a whirlwind of emotions. The excitement of my new career opportunity, the unexpected connection with Michael, and the lingering pain of my failed marriage all competed for attention. Just as I pulled into my driveway, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Jacob. "Sarah, I know you're moving on, but there's something you need to know. It's about Olivia. Can we meet?" My stomach clenched. Just when I thought I was making progress, Jacob threatened to pull me back into the drama. Should I agree to meet him? Or was it time to truly cut all ties and focus on my new beginning? As I sat in my car staring at the text, I realized that the choice I made now would set the course for the rest of my life. And for the first time in a long time, I felt ready to take control of my own destiny. I never expected to fall in love again, especially not so soon after my divorce. But life has a funny way of surprising you when you least expect it. Michael and I had been meeting for coffee regularly to discuss the reading program, but our conversations quickly expanded beyond work. His kindness, humor, and genuine interest in my thoughts and feelings were a balm to my wounded heart. One evening, as we walked through the park after dinner, Michael took my hand. The simple gesture sent a jolt of electricity through me. "Sarah," he said, his voice soft but serious, "I know you've been through a lot, and I don't want to rush you, but I need you to know how I feel. I'm falling in love with you." My heart raced, a mix of excitement and fear coursing through me. "Michael, I think I'm falling for you too, but I'm scared. What if I'm not ready?" He squeezed my hand gently. "We'll take it as slow as you need. I'm not going anywhere." Over the next few months, our relationship blossomed. Michael was everything Jacob wasn't: attentive, supportive, and honest. For the first time in years, I felt truly seen and appreciated. But just as I was starting to believe in happily ever after again, life threw me another curveball. It was a crisp autumn evening when Michael surprised me with a picnic in the park where we first confessed our feelings. As we sat on the blanket, surrounded by falling leaves, he took my hands in his. "Sarah," he began, his voice trembling slightly. "These past few months have been the happiest of my life. You've shown me what true love really means." My breath caught in my throat as he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I know it might seem fast," he continued, "but when you know, you know. Sarah, will you marry me?" Time seemed to stand still as I stared at the beautiful ring nestled in the box. A whirlwind of emotions swept through me: joy, love, excitement, and fear. "Michael, I hesitated, tears welling up in my eyes. "I love you so much. But I'm scared. My last marriage, it ended so badly. What if I'm not ready for this?" Michael's face softened with understanding. "I know you're scared, Sarah, and I understand why. But I'm not Jacob. I will never betray you or take you for granted. I want to spend the rest of my life proving that to you." As I looked into his earnest eyes, I felt my fears begin to melt away. This was Michael, kind, loving, trustworthy Michael. He wasn't Jacob, and it wasn't fair to let my past dictate my future. Yes, I whispered, a smile breaking through my tears. Yes, I'll marry you. Michael's face lit up with joy as he slipped the ring onto my finger. As we embraced, I felt a sense of peace and rightness that I hadn't experienced in years. But our moment of bliss was interrupted by the harsh buzz of my phone. I reluctantly pulled away from Michael to check it, thinking it might be Charlotte wanting to know how the evening went. Instead, I saw Jacob's name on the screen. My stomach clenched as I read his message. Sarah, I know you're moving on, but there's something you need to know. Olivia is pregnant, and she says it's mine. I don't know what to do. Please, can we talk? The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I looked from the message to the sparkling ring on my finger, then back to Michael's concerned face. Sarah, what's wrong? He asked, his voice laced with worry. I took a deep breath, knowing that my response to this message could change everything. Do I ignore Jacob and focus on my new life with Michael? Or do I get involved in this new drama, potentially jeopardizing my fresh start? As the weight of the decision pressed down on me, I realized that the choice I made now would not only affect my future but the lives of everyone involved. With trembling fingers, I began to type my response, hoping against hope that I was making the right choice. I sat on the edge of the bathtub, staring at the little plastic stick in my trembling hands. 2 pink lines, clear as day, pregnant. My mind raced, a whirlwind of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. Joy, fear, excitement, panic. They all battled for dominance as I tried to process this life-changing news. Sarah? Charlotte's voice called from the other side of the bathroom door. Are you okay in there? I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Yeah, I'm coming out. I opened the door to find Charlotte waiting anxiously. One look at my face told her everything. Oh my God, she whispered, pulling me into a tight hug. You're pregnant? I nodded against her shoulder, tears spilling down my cheeks. I don't know what to do, Charlie. I'm scared. Charlotte led me to the couch, keeping an arm around my shoulders. Okay, let's think this through. How do you feel about it? I'm happy, I admitted, surprising myself. I've always wanted to be a mother, but the timing, God, Charlie, I just got engaged to Michael. We haven't even set a wedding date yet. And Jacob. The mention of my ex-husband's name hung heavy in the air. I hadn't responded to his message about Olivia's pregnancy, choosing instead to focus on my relationship with Michael. But now, everything was infinitely more complicated. Have you told Michael yet? Charlotte asked gently. I shook my head. I wanted to be sure first, and I needed time to process it myself. He'll be thrilled, Sarah, Charlotte reassured me. Michael loves you. He'll support you no matter what. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Can't wait to see you tonight. I love you. Fresh tears welled up in my eyes. What if he thinks it's too soon? What if he doesn't want this? Charlotte squeezed my hand. Sarah, look at me. Michael is not Jacob. He's proven time and time again that he's in this for the long haul. Trust in that. I nodded, taking a deep breath. You're right. I need to tell him tonight. That evening, I paced nervously in my living room, waiting for Michael to arrive. When the doorbell rang, I nearly jumped out of my skin. Hey, beautiful. Michael greeted me with a kiss. His smile faded as he noticed my tense expression. Sarah, what's wrong? I led him to the couch, my heart pounding. Michael, I have something to tell you. His brow furrowed with concern. You're scaring me, Sarah. What is it? I took a deep breath, steeling myself. I'm pregnant. For a moment, Michael sat in stunned silence. Then, to my utter amazement, a broad smile spread across his face. We're having a baby? He asked, his voice filled with wonder. I nodded, tears of relief spilling down my cheeks. You're happy about this? Michael pulled me into his arms, laughing joyfully. Happy? Sarah? I'm ecstatic. This is incredible news. As we embraced, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Michael's unconditional love and support washed over me, soothing my fears. But our moment of bliss was interrupted by a harsh knock at the door. Michael and I exchanged confused glances. Are you expecting someone? He asked. I shook my head, a sense of dread creeping over me. As I opened the door, my worst fears were confirmed. Jacob stood on my doorstep, his face a storm of emotions. Sarah, we need to talk. Now. I felt Michael come up behind me, placing a protective hand on my shoulder. Jacob, this isn't a good time, I said firmly. It's about Olivia, Jacob pressed. And the baby. I think there's something you should know. My hand instinctively went to my own stomach, where our little secret was growing. In that moment, I realized I had a crucial decision to make. Do I let Jacob back into my life, potentially disrupting the happiness I've found with Michael? Or do I close the door on my past once and for all, focusing solely on the future growing inside me? As I stood on the threshold between my past and my future, I knew that whatever choice I made would irrevocably change the course of not just my life, but the lives of everyone involved. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation ahead. Michael squeezed my hand reassuringly as we sat across from Jacob in a quiet corner of the local cafe. The tension was palpable, thick enough to cut with a knife. So, Jacob began, his eyes darting between Michael and me. You wanted to talk. What's this about? I exchanged a glance with Michael, drawing strength from his steady presence. Jacob, we have some news. I paused, my hand instinctively moving to my stomach. I'm pregnant. Jacob's face went through a kaleidoscope of emotions, shock, disbelief, and then, to my horror, anger. Pregnant? He spat. How convenient. Let me guess, it's his. He jerked his head towards Michael. Of course it's mine, Michael said firmly, his arm tightening around me protectively. Jacob's eyes narrowed. Is it? Or are you just covering for her? After all, Sarah, we were still married not that long ago. I felt as if I'd been slapped. How dare you, I hissed, tears stinging my eyes. You have no right to accuse me of anything, not after what you did. What I did? Jacob laughed bitterly. At least I was honest about Olivia's pregnancy. You're trying to pass this off as his when we both know the timing doesn't add up. My world tilted on its axis. Olivia's pregnancy? I whispered, looking at Michael in confusion. He looked just as shocked as I felt. Jacob's face paled as he realized his mistake. You didn't know? No, I said, my voice barely audible. You never told me. You just showed up at my door, demanding to talk. The cafe suddenly felt too small, too crowded. I stood up abruptly, needing air. Michael rose with me, concern etched on his face. Sarah, wait, Jacob called as I rushed towards the exit. But I couldn't bear to hear another word. Outside, I gulped in the cool air, trying to make sense of everything. Michael's hands on my shoulders anchored me to reality. Sarah, look at me, he said gently. None of what Jacob said changes anything between us. I love you, and I love our baby. That's all that matters. I nodded, grateful for his unwavering support, but Jacob's words had planted a seed of doubt that I couldn't shake. Michael, what if he's right about the timing? Michael's face softened. Sarah, even if that were true, which we don't know for sure, it wouldn't change how I feel. This is our child, no matter what. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Charlotte. Sarah, we need to talk. It's about Jacob and Olivia. Call me ASAP. My heart raced as I showed Michael the message. Just then, Jacob burst out of the cafe. Sarah, please, he pleaded. Let me explain. About Olivia, about everything. I felt torn between my past and my future, between the man who had betrayed me and the man who stood by me through everything. The weight of my unborn child seemed to press down on me, demanding a decision. Enough, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. I'm done with your lies and manipulations, Jacob. Whatever is going on with you and Olivia, it's not my problem anymore. Jacob's face crumpled. But Sarah, there's more you need to know. About Olivia, about the baby. It's not what you think. As Jacob's words hung in the air, I felt the world closing in around me. My phone buzzed again, Charlotte's name flashing on the screen. Michael stood beside me, a pillar of strength. And Jacob, the man I once thought I'd spend my life with, looked more lost and desperate than I'd ever seen him. In that moment, I realized that the choice I made now would not only affect my life and the life of my unborn child, but would ripple out to touch everyone around me. With trembling hands, I reached for my phone, knowing that whatever Charlotte had to tell me could change everything once again. My hands shook as I dialed Charlotte's number, Michael's steady presence beside me, the only thing keeping me grounded. Jacob hovered nearby, his face a mask of anxiety. Sarah? Charlotte's voice crackled through the speaker. Thank God you called. You need to hear this. I put the phone on speaker, my heart racing. What's going on, Charlie? I just spoke with Olivia, Charlotte said, her voice tense. Sarah, she told me everything. Jacob's been lying to her too. Jacob's face paled. What? That's not. I held up a hand, silencing him. Go on, Charlotte. Olivia said Jacob told her he was separated from you, that your marriage was over in all but name. She had no idea you were still together when their affair started. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I stared at Jacob, seeing him clearly for the first time. Is this true? Jacob's shoulders slumped. Sarah, I can explain. Explain what? I snapped, fury rising in me. How you lied to both of us? How you manipulated everyone around you? Charlotte's voice cut through the tension. There's more, Sarah. Olivia, she's not sure the baby is Jacob's. A stunned silence fell over us. Jacob looked like he'd been punched in the gut. What do you mean? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She was seeing someone else around the same time, Charlotte explained. She thought Jacob was her only option, but now... I ended the call, my mind reeling. Everything I thought I knew was crumbling around me. Sarah, Jacob pleaded, reaching for me. I know I messed up, but I love you. I always have. Can't we? Stop, I said, my voice cold. Just stop, Jacob. I don't want to hear any more of your lies. Michael, who had been silent throughout this exchange, finally spoke up. I think you should leave, Jacob, now. Jacob's face hardened. This isn't over, Sarah. That baby could still be mine. You can't keep me away. As Jacob stormed off, I felt my knees give way. Michael caught me, holding me close as sobs racked my body. It's okay, he murmured. I'm here. We'll get through this together. But even as I clung to Michael, doubts crept in. What if Jacob was right? What if the baby was his? Could I trust anyone anymore? The next few days passed in a blur of doctor's appointments and sleepless nights. Michael was a constant source of support, but I could see the strain in his eyes. The uncertainty was taking its toll on both of us. Then one evening, as we sat in tense silence in my living room, a knock at the door shattered the quiet. I opened it to find Olivia standing there, her eyes red-rimmed and her hand resting protectively on her slightly swollen belly. Sarah, she said, her voice trembling, I'm so sorry. For everything. I need to talk to you. I hesitated, torn between slamming the door and hearing her out. Michael appeared behind me, his hand on my shoulder. It's your call, Sarah, he said softly. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. Taking a deep breath, I stepped aside to let Olivia in. As she entered, her eyes darted nervously between Michael and me. I know you probably hate me, Olivia began, but there's something you need to know. About Jacob, about the baby, about everything. My heart pounded in my chest as I braced myself for whatever bombshell Olivia was about to drop. In that moment, I realized that the truth she was about to reveal could either shatter the fragile new life I was building or provide the closure I desperately needed to move forward. As Olivia took a shaky breath to begin her story, I felt the weight of my own unborn child, a silent reminder of everything at stake. Whatever came next, I knew my world would never be the same. The contractions hit me like a freight train, each one more intense than the last. I gripped Michael's hand tightly as we rushed to the hospital, my mind a whirlwind of fear and excitement. You're doing great, Sarah, Michael reassured me, his voice steady despite the panic in his eyes. We're almost there. As we burst through the hospital doors, I saw a familiar face, Charlotte, waiting anxiously in the lobby. She rushed to my side, her presence instantly calming. I'm here, sweetie, she said, squeezing my free hand. You've got this. The next few hours were a blur of pain, encouragement, and determination. Michael and Charlotte stood by me, unwavering in their support. As I pushed with all my might, I thought about the journey that had led me here, the betrayal, the heartbreak, and the unexpected joy that had followed. Finally, with one last monumental effort, I heard it, the piercing cry of new life entering the world, my baby girl. She's beautiful, Michael whispered, tears streaming down his face as the nurse placed her in my arms. I looked down at my daughter, overwhelmed by the love that flooded through me. In that moment, all the pain and uncertainty of the past melted away. This was what mattered. This was my future. As I cradled my newborn, a soft knock at the door caught our attention. To my surprise, Olivia stood in the doorway, her own belly now prominently showing. I hope I'm not intruding, she said hesitantly. I wanted to see if you were okay, and to apologize again for everything. I looked at Michael and Charlotte, who nodded encouragingly. Come in, Olivia, I said softly. As Olivia approached, I saw the regret and sincerity in her eyes. Sarah, I can't begin to express how sorry I am for the pain I caused you. I was so blinded by Jacob's lies, I didn't see the truth until it was too late. I took a deep breath, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. We were both victims of Jacob's deception, Olivia. It's time we both let go of that pain and focus on the future. Olivia's eyes filled with tears as she looked at my daughter. She's gorgeous, Sarah. You and Michael must be so happy. Michael wrapped his arm around me, beaming with pride. We are, and we're grateful for every step that led us here, even the painful ones. As we sat there, an unlikely group bonded by shared experiences and new beginnings, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. Jacob's betrayal had shattered my world, but from those broken pieces I had built something stronger, more beautiful than I could have imagined. Charlotte broke the comfortable silence. So what's this little angel's name? I smiled, looking down at my daughter's peaceful face. Hope, I said softly. Her name is Hope. The room filled with murmurs of approval and gentle laughter. As I gazed at the faces around me, Michael, my rock and partner, Charlotte, my unwavering friend, and even Olivia, an unexpected ally, I realized that Hope wasn't just my daughter's name. It was what had carried me through the darkest times, what had led me to this moment of joy and new beginnings. Welcome to the world, Hope, I whispered, kissing her forehead. You are so loved. As the sun set outside the hospital window, casting a warm glow over the room, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. The road had been long and painful, but it had led me here, to a place of love, forgiveness, and endless possibilities. With Hope in my arms and my chosen family around me, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. The future was bright, full of promise, and I was ready to embrace it with open arms. As I drifted off to sleep, exhausted but content, I heard Michael's soft voice. I love you both so much, he murmured, his hand gently stroking Hope's tiny fingers. In that moment, I knew that this love, this family, this new chapter, was everything I had ever wanted and more. The pain of the past had faded, replaced by a joy so profound it took my breath away. Hope stirred in my arms, her tiny yawn, a reminder of the beautiful journey we were just beginning. And as I closed my eyes, I smiled, knowing that the best was yet to come. I stood in front of the mirror, smoothing down my dress for the 100th time. The restaurant reservation was in an hour, and Travis had promised this would be a special night. My stomach fluttered with a mix of excitement and apprehension. Samantha, you ready? Travis called from the living room. Just a minute. I took a deep breath, grabbed my purse, and stepped out. Travis whistled appreciatively. Wow, babe, you look stunning. I smiled, drinking in his appearance. He was dressed in a sharp suit, his sandy hair perfectly tousled. You clean up pretty well yourself. He grinned, that charming, boyish grin that had first caught my attention 3 years ago. Shall we? He offered his arm, and we headed out. The restaurant was upscale, with soft lighting and white tablecloths. As we perused the menu, I couldn't help but wonder about the occasion. Travis, what's all this about? I asked, curiosity getting the better of me. He reached across the table, taking my hand. Can't a guy treat his girl to a nice dinner? I raised an eyebrow. Of course, but you've been acting mysterious all week. He chuckled. Always the detective, aren't you? Let's order first, okay? Throughout dinner, Travis kept the conversation light, regaling me with stories from his latest business trip. I found myself relaxing, enjoying the evening. As we finished our dessert, Travis suddenly grew serious. Sam, these past 3 years have been amazing. My heart began to race. Was this going where I thought it was? You're the best thing that's ever happened to me, he continued, reaching into his pocket. I can't imagine my life without you. He pulled out a small velvet box and got down on one knee. The other diners around us fell silent. Samantha Marie Cooper, will you marry me? I stared at the sparkling diamond ring, my mind whirling. This was it, the moment I'd dreamed of, yet somehow never quite believed would happen. Travis, my free-spirited, adventure-loving boyfriend, was proposing. Sam? Travis prompted, a hint of nervousness in his voice. I realized I'd been silent for too long. Yes, I breathed. Yes, I'll marry you. The restaurant erupted in applause as Travis slipped the ring on my finger and pulled me in for a kiss. Later that night, as we lay in bed, reality began to set in. We're getting married, I murmured, still in disbelief. Travis pulled me closer. I can't wait to start our life together. I hesitated, then voiced the concern that had been nagging at me. Travis, you know I love you, but are you sure you're ready for this? Marriage is a big step. He propped himself up on an elbow, looking down at me. Sam, I've never been more sure of anything in my life. You're the one who grounds me, who makes me want to be a better man. His words warmed my heart, but a small part of me still worried. Travis had always been the spontaneous one, while I was the planner. Could we really make this work? As if reading my thoughts, Travis said, I know I've been a bit of a wild card, but I'm ready to settle down, with you. I smiled, pushing my doubts aside. I love you, Travis. I love you too, Sam. Always. The next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee. Travis was in the kitchen, attempting to make breakfast. Morning, fiancé, he said with a grin, presenting me with a slightly burnt piece of toast. I laughed, kissing him on the cheek. For effort. As I sipped my coffee, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my best friend, Lisa. Heard the news. Can't believe Travis finally popped the question. Call me ASAP. I was about to reply when Travis's phone rang. His face lit up as he answered. Mom, yes, she said yes. I froze. I'd completely forgotten about Travis's mother, Mabel, the woman who'd never quite warmed up to me, who always seemed to find fault with everything I did. As Travis chatted excitedly with his mother, I felt a knot forming in my stomach. What had I gotten myself into? I smoothed my wedding dress one last time before stepping out of the dressing room. My heart raced as I walked down the aisle, Travis beaming at me from the altar. Despite my lingering doubts, I pushed them aside. This was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Fast forward 6 months, and I found myself staring at our joint bank account, my stomach in knots. Travis, I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. Can you come here for a second? He sauntered into the room, still in his pajamas despite it being well past noon. What's up, babe? I pointed at the screen. Care to explain this $500 charge at the golf course? Travis shrugged. Just a guy's day out. No big deal. No big deal? I echoed, incredulous. Travis, we're supposed to be saving for our future. Remember the house we talked about? He waved his hand dismissively. Relax, Sam. We've got plenty of time for all that boring stuff. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. This isn't the first time, Travis. Last month it was that expensive watch. Before that... Geez, are you keeping tabs on me now? Travis interrupted, his tone sharp. I thought we were partners, not warden and prisoner. His words stung. That's not fair. I'm just trying to be responsible. Travis's face softened. He pulled me into a hug. I'm sorry, babe. I know you're looking out for us. I'll try to be better, okay? I nodded, wanting to believe him. But a nagging voice in my head whispered that this conversation was far from over. Later that week, I was struggling with groceries when our neighbor, Edward, appeared out of nowhere. Need a hand? He asked, his warm smile instantly putting me at ease. That would be great, thanks, I said gratefully. As we walked to my apartment, Edward chatted easily about the neighborhood. I found myself relaxing, laughing at his jokes. Where's Travis? Edward asked as we reached my door. I hesitated. Oh, he's out with friends. Edward's eyebrow raised slightly, but he didn't comment. Well, if you ever need help again, don't hesitate to ask. That's what neighbors are for, right? I smiled, touched by his kindness. Thank you, Edward. I really appreciate it. That night, I confronted Travis about his absence. You said you'd be home to help with errands today. Travis looked up from his phone, annoyed. Something came up at work. I texted you. No, you didn't, I said, checking my messages. I had to lug everything myself. If Edward hadn't... Edward? Travis's eyes narrowed. What's he got to do with this? I explained about the groceries, surprised by Travis's reaction. He was just being neighborly. Travis scoffed. Yeah, I bet he was. Look, Sam, I don't like you hanging around other guys. I stared at him, shocked. Are you serious right now? He's our neighbor, Travis, and maybe if you were around more. Oh, here we go again, Travis groaned. You know what? I'm going out. Travis, wait, but he was already gone, slamming the door behind him. I sank onto the couch, fighting back tears. This wasn't how I imagined married life would be. Travis's charm, once so alluring, now felt like a mask hiding something darker. The next morning, I woke to find Travis's side of the bed empty. A text from him read, Crashed at Mike's. See you tonight. I sighed, getting ready for work. As I left the apartment, I ran into Edward again. Morning, Samantha, he said cheerfully. Then, noticing my expression, everything okay? I forced a smile. Just fine. Have a good day, Edward. As I walked away, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had to change. The man I married was slipping away, replaced by someone I barely recognized. And the scariest part? A small voice inside me wondered if that might not be such a bad thing after all. I was in the middle of a crucial work presentation when my phone buzzed incessantly. Ignoring it, I focused on my clients. As soon as the meeting ended, I checked my messages. 15 missed calls from Travis. My heart raced as I dialed him back. Sam, finally. Travis's voice was strained. It's Mom. Dad, he's gone. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Oh, Travis, I'm so sorry. What happened? Heart attack. I'm at the hospital now. Can you come? I rushed to the hospital, finding Travis slumped in a waiting room chair. His eyes were red-rimmed, his usual charm replaced by raw grief. I held him as he sobbed, my own heart aching for his loss. Days blurred into weeks as we helped Mabel with funeral arrangements and settling affairs. Travis threw himself into taking care of his mother, spending more and more time at her house. One evening, as I was heating up another solo dinner, Travis called. Hey, babe, I'm staying at Mom's again tonight. I sighed, frustration bubbling up. Travis, it's been 3 weeks. When are you coming home? Sam, she needs me. You understand, right? I bit back a retort. Of course. It's just, I miss you. There was a pause. I miss you too. Look, why don't we bring Mom to stay with us for a while? It'll be easier on everyone. My stomach dropped. Stay with us? For how long? Just until she's back on her feet. A couple of weeks, tops. I wanted to protest, but couldn't find the words. Okay, I said finally, if you think it's best. The next day, Travis arrived with Mabel and several suitcases. I plastered on a smile, helping them settle in. That night, as we lay in bed, I whispered, Travis, are you sure about this? Our apartment's not that big. He turned to me, his expression hard. She's my mother, Sam. Where else is she supposed to go? I fell silent, the distance between us feeling wider than ever. Days turned into weeks, and Mabel showed no signs of leaving. She rearranged our kitchen, criticized my cooking, and monopolized the TV with her favorite shows. Travis seemed oblivious to my growing frustration. One evening, I came home to find Mabel had redecorated our living room. Surprise, she exclaimed. Doesn't it look so much better now? I stared at the frilly curtains and doilies covering every surface. Mabel, you can't just change our home without asking. Her face fell. I was only trying to help. Travis said it was fine. Did he now? I muttered, marching to our bedroom where Travis was lounging. Hey, babe, he said, not looking up from his phone. Travis, we need to talk about your mother. Travis, he sighed. What about her? She's taking over our home, and you're letting her. Travis sat up, frowning. She's going through a tough time, Sam. Can't you be more understanding? Understanding? I exploded. I've been nothing but understanding. But this is our home, Travis. Our life. When is she leaving? A look of surprise crossed his face. Leaving? Sam, she can't go back to that empty house. She's staying here. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. For how long? Travis shrugged. As long as she needs. I stared at him, disbelief turning to anger. And when were you planning on discussing this with me? Your wife? I didn't think I needed your permission to help my own mother, Travis snapped. It's not about permission, it's about respect, I shouted. This affects both of us, Travis. Or, have you forgotten we're supposed to be partners? Travis stood up, his face thunderous. You know what? I can't deal with this right now. I'm going out. As he stormed out, I sank onto the bed, tears of frustration streaming down my face. This wasn't the life I had signed up for. Something had to give, and I was terrified it might be me. I stared at the glossy brochure in my hands, my heart racing with a mix of excitement and trepidation. The luxury apartment complex looked like a dream come true, spacious rooms, a state-of-the-art kitchen, and a breathtaking view of the city skyline. What do you think, babe? Travis asked, his eyes gleaming with enthusiasm. This could be our fresh start. I hesitated. It's beautiful, but Travis, can we afford this? With your mom living with us and our current expenses. He waved off my concerns. Sam, this is an investment in our future. We deserve this after everything we've been through. I couldn't deny the allure of a new beginning, a chance to escape the cramped quarters we'd been sharing with Mabel. How would we manage the down payment? Travis's smile widened. That's the best part. I've found a way to make it work. We just need to sign the papers, and it's ours. Against my better judgment, I found myself nodding. Okay, let's do it. The next day, we met with the real estate agent. As we went through the paperwork, a detail caught my eye. Wait, why is only my name on the loan application? Travis squeezed my hand. It's just a formality, Sam. My credit isn't great right now because of some business investments. But don't worry, we're in this together. I frowned, a knot forming in my stomach. I don't know, Travis. This is a huge commitment. Do you trust me? He asked, his eyes locking with mine. I swallowed hard. Of course, but then trust me on this. It's the smart move, I promise. Against the screaming protests of my intuition, I signed the papers. Travis's triumphant grin should have been reassuring, but instead, it sent a chill down my spine. Weeks later, we moved into our new apartment. As I unpacked boxes in our gleaming kitchen, Mabel shuffled in, her face pinched with disapproval. I don't know why we had to move, she grumbled. Our old place was just fine. I bit back a retort. This place has more space for all of us, Mabel. You'll get used to it. She harumphed and wandered off. I sighed, wondering for the 1,000th time when she'd return to her own home. That evening, as Travis and I sat on our new balcony, I broached the subject. Travis, have you talked to your mom about her plans? He tensed. What do you mean? Well, we moved here for a fresh start, right? I thought maybe she'd be ready to go back to her place soon. Travis's expression darkened. Sam, we've been over this. Mom needs us right now. But for how long? I pressed. It's been months and she's showing no signs of leaving. Because she's not going to leave, Travis snapped. This is her home now, too. I felt like I'd been doused in ice water. What? When did we decide this? I decided it, he said firmly. She's my mother, Sam. Where else is she supposed to go? But Travis, this apartment, the loan, it's all in my name. We can't afford. He cut me off. We'll make it work. You're being selfish, Sam. I thought you were better than this. As he stormed off, leaving me alone on the balcony, the full weight of my situation crashed down on me. I was trapped. Financially responsible for a home I couldn't afford, living with a mother-in-law who'd never leave, and married to a man I barely recognized anymore. My phone buzzed with a text. It was Edward. Hey neighbor, noticed you moved. Everything okay? I stared at the message, tears welling in my eyes. In that moment, I realized I had a choice to make. I could continue down this path of misery, or I could fight back. But fighting back meant admitting that my marriage, my life, everything I'd built, it was all crumbling around me. With shaking hands, I typed a reply to Edward. No, everything is not okay. Can we talk? I stared at the stack of bills on the kitchen counter, my hands shaking. The mortgage payment was due in 3 days, and our account was nearly empty. Again, I took a deep breath and dialed Travis's number. Hey, babe, he answered, his voice cheerful. What's up? Travis, we need to talk about the mortgage, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. It's due soon, and we're short. Again. There was a pause. Oh, right. Listen, can you cover it this month? I've got some big deals in the works, but they haven't come through yet. I felt my blood pressure rising. Travis, I've been covering it for the past 3 months. This was supposed to be our dream home, remember? Our shared responsibility. I know, he said, his tone dismissive, but you're doing so well at work, and I'm still trying to get my business off the ground. It's just temporary, I promise. Before I could respond, I heard Mabel's voice in the background. Travis, dear, are we still going shopping later? My jaw clenched. Is that your mother? Are you taking her shopping while we can't even pay our mortgage? Sam, don't start, Travis warned. Look, I've got to go. We'll figure it out, okay? Love you. The line went dead. I stared at the phone in disbelief, then slumped into a chair, fighting back tears. A knock at the door startled me. I opened it to find Edward, holding a basket of muffins. Hey, neighbor, he said with a warm smile. Thought you could use a pick-me-up. I must have looked worse than I thought because his expression quickly turned to concern. Samantha, what's wrong? Before I knew it, I was spilling everything. The financial strain, Travis's irresponsibility, Mabel's constant presence. Edward listened patiently, his kind eyes never leaving mine. I'm so sorry you're going through this, he said when I finished. Have you considered talking to a financial advisor? Or maybe a lawyer? I shook my head. I can't afford either right now. And besides, Travis would never agree to it. Edward frowned. Samantha, this isn't just about Travis anymore. You need to protect yourself. His words hit me hard. I'd been so focused on keeping our marriage afloat that I'd neglected my own well-being. Just then, Travis and Mabel burst through the door, laden with shopping bags. Travis froze when he saw Edward. "What's going on here?" "Edward just stopped by to say hello," I said quickly. "Thanks for the muffins, Edward. I'll see you around." After Edward left, Travis rounded on me. What was he doing here? "He's our neighbor, Travis. He was being friendly." Travis scoffed. "A little too friendly, if you ask me." I felt something snap inside me. "Oh, that's rich coming from you. Where were you all day? Shopping, while I'm here trying to figure out how to pay our bills." "Don't be dramatic, Sam," Travis said, rolling his eyes. "I told you I'll handle it." "When?" I demanded. "When are you going to start acting like a responsible adult?" Mabel chimed in, her voice shrill. "Don't you dare speak to my son that way, after everything he's done for you. Enough!" "No," I shouted, surprising even myself. "I can't do this anymore. I'm drowning here, Travis. I need help." Travis's face hardened. "What are you saying?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "I'm saying that things need to change, now. Either we go to couples counseling and financial planning, or what?" Travis challenged. The words left my mouth before I could stop them. "Or I'm done. I'll file for divorce." The silence that followed was deafening. Travis stared at me, shock and anger warring on his face. Mabel gasped dramatically, clutching her pearls. In that moment, looking at their stunned faces, I realized I'd reached a crossroads. The life I'd built with Travis, the future I'd imagined, it was all hanging by a thread. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if I wanted to keep holding on. "Your choice, Travis," I said quietly. "What's it going to be?" I paced our living room, anxiety gnawing at my insides. It had been 2 days since my ultimatum to Travis, and he'd barely spoken me since. The tension in our apartment was suffocating. The front door opened and Travis walked in. My heart raced as I searched his face for any sign of what he'd decided. "Sam, we need to talk," he said, his voice unnervingly calm. I nodded, bracing myself. "Okay. What have you decided?" Travis took a deep breath. "I want a divorce." The words hit me like a physical blow. Despite everything, I hadn't truly believed he'd choose this. "What, Travis? I didn't mean—" "I know what you meant," he interrupted, "but it made me realize something. This isn't working, Sam. It hasn't been for a long time." I felt like I was drowning. "But we can fix this. Counseling, like I suggested." "It's too late for that," Travis said, his eyes not quite meeting mine. There's someone else." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "Someone else?" I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. Travis nodded, looking almost relieved to have it out. "Her name is Stella. We've been seeing each other for— How long is a while?" "A while," I demanded, anger starting to replace the shock. He hesitated. "About 8 months." 8 months. The timeline hit me like a truck. "Since before we moved here? Before you convinced me to take out that loan?" Travis at least had the decency to look ashamed. "I'm sorry, Sam. I never meant for it to happen. But Stella and we connect in a way you and I never did." I laughed bitterly. "And let me guess, she doesn't mind your mother living with you?" "Actually," Travis said, straightening up, "Mom's moving in with Stella and me. We've found a place that's perfect for the 3 of us." The casual way he said it, like he was discussing weekend plans, made something snap inside me. "Perfect for the 3 of you? What about me, Travis? What about the life we built, the mortgage that's in my name?" He shrugged, and in that moment I saw him clearly for the first time. The charm, the promises, it had all been a facade. "You're doing well at work. I'm sure you'll figure it out." "Figure it out?" I repeated, incredulous. "You saddle me with a mortgage I can't afford, cheat on me for months, and now you're just walking away?" "I've already spoken to a lawyer," Travis said, pulling out a folder. "These are the divorce papers. It'll be easier if you just sign them now." I stared at the folder, feeling like I was in some surreal nightmare. "You want me to sign right now? Just like that?" "It's for the best, Sam," he said, his tone patronizing. "A clean break." My hand shook as I took the folder. I flipped through the pages, the legal jargon swimming before my eyes. One phrase jumped out at me. "The wife agrees to assume all financial responsibilities related to the marital home." "You're leaving me with all the debt?" I asked, my voice rising. "After everything you've done?" Travis had the audacity to look annoyed. "Come on, Sam. Don't make this difficult. It's a fair deal." I looked at him. This man I thought I knew. This man I had loved. In his eyes, I saw nothing but cold indifference. The realization hit me like a physical blow. I meant nothing to him. I never had. "Get out," I whispered. "What?" "Get out," I screamed, throwing the folder at him. "Get out of my house, you lying, cheating bastard." Travis backed away, hands raised. "Fine. I'll give you some time to calm down, but I'll be back for those papers, Sam. This is happening whether you like it or not." As the door slammed behind him, I collapsed onto the floor, sobs racking my body. My world had just imploded, and I was left alone in the ruins, drowning in debt and betrayal. Through my tears, I caught sight of my reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back at me looked broken, defeated. But as I held her gaze, I felt something stir deep inside, a spark of defiance, of rage. Travis thought he could walk all over me and get away with it. He was wrong. Dead wrong. I stared at the empty spaces in my apartment, the silence deafening. Travis had moved out yesterday, taking Mabel with him. The divorce papers lay unsigned on the coffee table, mocking me. My phone buzzed. Another text from Travis. "Sign the papers, Sam. My lawyer's getting impatient." I threw the phone across the room, watching it bounce off the couch. The anger that had been simmering for days suddenly boiled over. I grabbed my keys and stormed out, needing to escape the suffocating walls. As I reached the elevator, I ran into Edward. His concerned eyes met mine. "Samantha, are you okay?" I laughed bitterly. "Oh, I'm fantastic. My cheating ex-husband has left me with a mountain of debt and run off with his mistress. I'm living the dream." Edward's face softened. "I'm so sorry. Is there anything I can do?" I was about to brush him off when an idea struck me. "Actually, yes. You're in real estate, right? I need your help." An hour later, we sat in a cafe, poring over documents. Edward's expression grew grimmer with each page. "Samantha, this is worse than I thought. The loan terms are predatory and the property value is inflated. Travis really screwed you over." The confirmation of Travis's betrayal hit me like a punch to the gut. "What can I do?" Edward hesitated. "There might be a way, but it's not exactly legal." I leaned forward, desperation overriding my usual caution. "Tell me." As Edward outlined his plan, a part of me recoiled at the idea. But a larger part, the part consumed by rage and hurt, latched onto it like a lifeline. That night, I sat at my computer, fingers flying over the keyboard. Years of managing Travis's accounts gave me intimate knowledge of his finances. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for: hidden accounts, shady transactions, evidence of fraud. My phone buzzed again. "Travis, where are the signed papers, Sam? Don't make this difficult." I smiled grimly, typing out a response. "We need to talk. Meet me at the cafe tomorrow at 2 p.m. The next day, I arrived early, setting up my laptop. My heart raced as I saw Travis saunter in, his usual cocky grin in place. "Finally come to your senses?" he asked, sliding into the seat across from me. I took a deep breath. "Not exactly. I've been doing some digging, Travis. Care to explain these?" I turned the laptop towards him, showing the evidence of his financial misdeeds. The color drained from his face. "How did you—" "Doesn't matter," I cut him off. "What matters is what happens next. You have two choices. One, you take on the mortgage and all associated debts. Or two, I turn this over to the authorities." Travis's eyes narrowed. "You're bluffing. You'd go down with me." "Maybe," I conceded, "but I have nothing left to lose thanks to you. Can you say the same?" For a moment, I saw fear flicker in his eyes. Then his face hardened. "Nice try, Sam. But you forget. I know you. You don't have the guts to go through with this." He stood up, looming over me. "Sign the papers, or I'll make your life a living hell. You think you're struggling now? Just wait." As he stormed out, leaving me trembling in my seat, I realized he was right. The old Samantha wouldn't have the courage to follow through. But I wasn't that woman anymore. With shaking hands, I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I'd memorized earlier. "Hello? Is this the FBI's Financial Crimes Division? I'd like to report a case of fraud." As I began detailing Travis's crimes, I felt a strange mix of terror and exhilaration. There was no going back now. I was all in, for better or worse. The game had changed, and this time I was determined to win. My heart pounded as I stood outside the quaint suburban house. This was it, the moment of truth. I took a deep breath and rang the doorbell. A pretty blonde woman answered, her smile faltering as she saw me. "Can I help you? Are you Stella?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. She nodded, confusion evident on her face. "I'm Samantha, Travis's wife." The color drained from Stella's face. I don't understand. Travis said he was divorced. Not quite, I said, my anger rising. Is he here? As if on cue, Travis appeared behind Stella. His eyes widened in shock. Sam? What are you doing here? I pushed past them into the house, Stella too stunned to stop me. We need to talk, all of us. In the living room, I saw Mabel looking bewildered. Samantha, what's going on? I turned to face them all. It's time for the truth to come out. Travis, why don't you start by explaining to Stella how you're still married? Or maybe you'd like to tell her about the fraudulent financial dealings I uncovered. Travis's face contorted with rage. You had no right. I had every right, I shouted. You left me drowning in debt, Travis. Debt you tricked me into taking on. Stella's voice was barely a whisper. Is this true? Travis's charm kicked in, his voice smooth. Baby, it's not what it sounds like. Sam's just bitter. Don't you dare, I cut him off. I turned to Stella. I have proof of everything, the affairs, the fraud, all of it. I pulled out my phone, showing her the documents I'd gathered. Stella's face crumpled as she scrolled through, the evidence undeniable. How could you? She whispered to Travis. Travis's facade finally cracked. I can explain, but there was no explaining away the truth. As Stella and Mabel absorbed the reality of Travis's deceptions, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. So what now? Travis asked, his voice hollow. You've ruined everything. Are you happy? I looked at him, this man I once loved, and felt nothing but pity. This isn't about being happy, Travis. The FBI is already investigating your finances. You're going to face the consequences of your actions. Mabel let out a strangled sob. My boy. What have you done? I turned to her, my voice softening. Mabel, I'm sorry, but you can't stay here anymore. I've arranged for you to move to a nice assisted living facility. Travis will cover the costs. It's the least he can do. Travis's head snapped up. You can't do that. Actually, I can, I said, my voice firm. It's all part of the deal I worked out with the prosecutor. You take responsibility for your actions or you face the full extent of the law. The fight seemed to drain out of Travis. He slumped onto the couch, head in his hands. Stella, who had been silent, suddenly spoke up. I want in on this deal. He lied to me too. Used me. I nodded, a spark of understanding passing between us. Of course. We'll make sure he pays alimony to both of us. As the reality of his situation sank in, Travis looked up at me, his eyes pleading. Sam, please. We can work this out. I'll do anything. For a moment, I remembered the charming man I fell in love with. But that man was gone, if he ever truly existed. It's too late for that, Travis, I said softly. You made your choices. Now you have to live with them. I turned to leave, feeling lighter than I had in years. At the door, I paused and looked back at the chaos I was leaving behind. Stella was crying, Mabel was praying, and Travis looked broken, but I felt no satisfaction, no joy in their pain. Only relief that it was finally over. As I stepped out into the sunlight, I took a deep breath. For the first time in years, I felt free. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to face it, on my own terms. I pulled out my phone and dialed Edward's number. It's done, I said when he answered. Thank you for everything. You did it, Samantha, he replied, his voice warm. I'm proud of you. As I hung up, I smiled. The shadows of betrayal were finally lifting, and I was stepping into the light of a new day, stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever came next. What are you doing, Mitchell? Do you think she'll ever find out? Isn't this exciting? That voice. My heart faltered at the sound of it. I had come home early, feeling uneasy for reasons I couldn't explain. Now, standing in the hallway, I could hear laughter and clinking glasses coming from the living room. Cautiously stepping forward, I peeked through the slightly ajar door. My husband Mitchell, my best friend Natalie, and my mother Donna were all sitting there, a half-empty bottle of wine on the table, surrounded by an aura of infectious joy. Mitchell's arm was around Natalie, and my mother was sitting so close to him, their knees almost touching. What's so funny? I stepped into the room, my voice heavier than I intended. The laughter died. They looked at me, stunned, eyes wide with guilt. Donna was the first to speak, masking her surprise with a too bright smile. Casey, you're home early. We were just catching up. Obviously, I said, my eyes narrowing. What's the occasion? Natalie, twirling the wineglass, tried to play it off. Just a casual get-together. We've been missing you. I scrutinized their expressions, the forced ease and underlying tension. My stomach churned. Missing me? Since when? Mitchell rose from the couch, walking towards me with an easy smile that no longer reassured me. Hey babe, you okay? You look pale. Ignoring his concern, I focused on their little setup. So, what's this intimate gathering about? Something you wanted to share? Donna set her glass down, her hand trembling slightly. You're reading too much into it, darling. Relax. I was anything but relaxed. I crossed my arms, leaning against the doorframe. Really? Because from here it looks like a private party I wasn't invited to. A flicker of something, guilt, perhaps, flashed in Mitchell's eyes, but he quickly smothered it with a laugh. Casey, come on, it's not like that. We just needed to unwind a bit. Natalie nodded, but her agreement felt hollow, like an echo in a vast, empty space. Yeah, we just needed a break, you know? Everything's been stressful for everyone. I looked at my husband, my best friend, and my mother, feeling the walls closing in, the air heavy with deceit. Of course, I said, though I didn't believe a word. I stood there, feeling shattered but determined not to expose my hurt. Well, don't let me interrupt your good time. I turned and walked away, my steps determined, my fists clenched tight. In the quiet of the hallway, their laughter resumed. But it sounded different now, forced, like a brittle shell hiding the rot beneath. I'd witnessed enough to know something was terribly wrong. Beneath my calm exterior, the reality of their betrayal burned, each laugh and every whisper like a blade slicing through my skin. In that moment, I knew. This was just the beginning. I had to uncover the full extent of their deception. The laughter sounded different now. It haunted me as I climbed the stairs, each step feeling like I was dragging a boulder. I pushed open the door to my bedroom and collapsed onto the bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to piece together the fragments of my unraveling life. A flood of memories hit me. Growing up, it was just Mom and me. We were so close. Even now, her betrayal stung like a fresh wound. I remembered how she would hold my hand, telling me everything would be okay when things were tough. All lies now. Pushing the painful thoughts aside, I focused on my career. It had always been my escape, the one place where I felt in control. I'd worked hard for years, climbing the corporate ladder. All the late nights, the missed family dinners. Mitchell had supported me through it all, or so I thought. Now it seemed like it had given him time to form his twisted trinity. A faint knock on the door pulled me back to reality. Casey, can we talk? Mitchell's voice was on the other side. I clenched my teeth, forcing myself to stay calm. I opened the door. What do you want? He looked uncomfortable, scratching the back of his neck. I noticed you weren't yourself downstairs. Are you okay? I don't know, Mitchell. You tell me. My voice was cold, distant. He stepped closer, reaching out, but I stepped back. Casey, please, you're overreacting. Nothing's going on. Overreacting? The word bounced around in my head. Is that how you see it? Just friends hanging out, right? He sighed, frustration creeping into his tone. Yes, that's all it is. You're making this bigger than it needs to be. I laughed, a bitter sound. Bigger than it needs to be? My husband, my best friend, and my mother hiding things from me. Yeah, I must be crazy. Before he could respond, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Natalie. Hey, can we talk? I think there's been a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. They really thought they could brush this under the rug. Mitchell was watching, sensing the shift in my mood. Natalie wants to talk. I guess it's time for a group therapy session, huh? His face paled. Casey, don't do this. Ignoring him, I walked past, heading back to the living room. Donna and Natalie looked up as I entered, sensing the storm approaching. Natalie, you wanted to talk. Let's clear this up right now. Natalie stood hesitant. Casey, we're just friends. You came in at the wrong time. Donna nodded, her eyes pleading. Darling, please, it's not what you think. I took a deep breath, gathering every ounce of strength. Enough. I'm not blind. I hear things. I see things. How long will you keep lying to my face? The silence that followed was heavy, filled with unspoken truths. The tight thread holding my life together was unraveling fast. One thing was clear. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was the beginning of a battle, and I wasn't backing down. The air in the living room was stifling. I felt everyone's eyes on me, searching for a crack in my resolve, but I stood firm. Natalie, I said, my voice cold and steady, if it's all innocent, why don't you explain the odd messages, the secret meetings? Natalie shifted uncomfortably, her eyes darting toward Mitchell and Donna. Casey, it's not a big deal. We've just been close lately, that's all. Close? I spat the word back at her. How close exactly? Her silence was damning. Mitchell stepped in, his tone a mix of annoyance and desperation. You're being paranoid. There's nothing going on. We're friends, that's it. I shook my head, anger bubbling over. Friends don't hide things. Friends don't act like this behind someone's back. Donna tried to soften the blow, reaching out to me. Honey, you're working so hard. We just wanted to make sure you had support, people to lean on. My mother's attempt at justification pushed me over the edge. Support? By excluding and lying to me? That's how you support me? Thus, I could see Mitchell's patience wearing thin. We didn't want to bother you with every little thing, Casey. You're always busy. Busy? Right, I said, nodding, letting the word hang in the air. So busy that I missed the signs, the little things that didn't add up. Mitchell's frustration spilled out. This isn't what you think it is. Why can't you just accept that we were trying to make things easier for you? Easier? I laughed bitterly. By making me feel like an outsider in my own life? Natalie, her voice shaky, tried to interject. Casey, please, we never meant to hurt you. Never meant to hurt me. Then why does it feel like you've stabbed me in the back? I could barely control the tremor in my voice. I gave my life to this family. I trusted you all. Donna's eyes filled with tears, but I had no sympathy left. All right, you've made your point, she said quietly, but let's not blow this out of proportion. Out of proportion? I let out a breath of pure disbelief. You've been hiding something huge from me, and you want to downplay it? Hannah's small voice drifted from the hallway. Mommy, what's going on? I turned to see my daughter, her innocent eyes wide with worry. My heart ached, but I forced a smile. Nothing, sweetie. Just grown-up talk. As Hannah shuffled back to her room, I looked at the three of them, a husband, a best friend, and a mother who had conspired to keep me in the dark. I'm done with this conversation, I declared, my voice firm. You think I'm overreacting? Fine, but I'm not done digging. With that, I left the room, the bitter taste of betrayal thick in my mouth. Whatever was going on, I was going to find out, and there would be a reckoning. The tension in the house thickened each day. I couldn't look at Mitchell, Natalie, or Donna without feeling a surge of anger. Hannah noticed my distraction but was too young to understand. Meanwhile, the odd behaviors were piling up, one by one, painting an increasingly sinister picture. It started with the phone calls. Whenever I walked into the room, Donna would end her conversation abruptly. Just catching up with an old friend, she'd say, smiling too brightly. Then there were the glances between Mitchell and Natalie. They exchanged looks that felt like silent agreements, words left unspoken, connected by something I wasn't part of. Late-night meetings, whispers in the kitchen, flipping their phones upside down, every small action screamed secrecy. One evening, I caught a glimpse of a flirtatious text on Mitchell's phone before he quickly locked the screen. My stomach turned, but I stayed calm. Who's that? I asked, keeping my voice light. Just a work thing, he replied, too quickly. My suspicion solidified. I needed more than snippets and gut feelings. I needed undeniable proof. I began paying closer attention. Mitchell's car parked at odd places, Donna's slips about where she'd been, and Natalie's vague explanations about her whereabouts, all clues leading to a single horrific conclusion. They were seeing each other behind my back. As I mentally connected the dots, I confronted them. I gathered Mitchell, Natalie, and Donna in the living room, the same place where my world had started unraveling. We need to talk. Seriously, I said, my voice leaving no room for argument. They exchanged nervous glances. Donna tried to play it cool. What's this about, darling? No more lies, I demanded. I know something's been going on. I want the truth. Mitchell looked to the floor, unable to meet my gaze. Natalie's face flushed red. Donna took a deep breath, finally breaking the silence. All right, Casey, you want the truth? Here it is. A coldness swept over me as she continued. We've been involved, all of us, in a relationship together. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. A relationship? You mean like an affair? All of you? Donna nodded. We didn't mean for it to happen this way, but yes, we've been involved. Polyamorous. Mitchell finally looked up, guilt and relief mingling in his eyes. I'm sorry, Casey. We didn't know how to tell you. We didn't want to hurt you. Natalie added quickly, We didn't choose this to hurt you, Casey. It just happened. I stared at them, the reality of their betrayal sinking in. Hurt me? You think saying that in such a calm tone makes it any less painful? The facade of my normal life shattered. I felt anger, betrayal, and shock battling within me, but beneath it all, a fierce determination rose. I looked each of them in the eye, a final resolve hardening in my voice. This is not over. You will regret every bit of this. Their expressions twisted in a mix of fear and uncertainty. They should be scared. I turned and left, my mind racing with plans. My revenge was just beginning. Silence engulfed the room after I walked out. The raw mix of emotions inside me was hard to contain, but I knew I had to stay focused. After a while, I went to Hannah's room and quietly sat by her bed, watching her sleep, her breath even and calm, a soothing contrast to the storm I faced. The next morning, I called my sister Erin. "Can I come over? It's urgent," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Of course, Casey. What's going on?" she asked, concern coloring her tone. "It's complicated. I'll explain when I get there." I hung up, packed a small bag, and gently woke Hannah. "We're going on a little trip to Aunt Erin's, okay?" Hannah's eyes lit up. "Yay! Can we have pancakes for breakfast there?" I forced a smile. "Absolutely." Leaving Mitchell, Donna, and Natalie behind felt like shedding a skin. I drove with a clear purpose, needing the support Erin always provided. When I arrived at Erin's place, she greeted me with a warm hug, instantly knowing something was really wrong. "What happened?" she asked gently as we settled on her couch. "They've been involved. Mitchell, Natalie, and Mom. Behind my back," I managed to say, feeling the sting as fresh as when I discovered the truth. Erin's eyes widened in shock. "What? How could they? I can't believe this." Anger flashed across her face. "You don't deserve this, Casey. I need your help." "I have to protect Hannah and figure out my next steps," I said, my voice steadying with resolve. Erin nodded immediately. "You know I'm with you. Whatever you need." Our first move was to meet with a lawyer. I planned to pursue legal separation from Mitchell and ensure Hannah's custody arrangements protected her from the toxicity. Erin stayed with Hannah to keep things normal for her while I focused on dismantling the life that had become a lie. Later, when I went to pick up Hannah, I faced Mitchell. His eyes were filled with a mix of regret and helplessness. "Casey, can we talk, please?" I looked at him, my voice icy. "There's nothing left to talk about, Mitchell. I've contacted a lawyer. This is over." He looked down, defeated. "I never wanted to hurt you." "Well, you did, and now there are consequences," I replied, turning away to leave. Back at Erin's, my father Robert stopped by. Erin must have told him something, judging by the stern look on his face. "Casey, what's going on?" he asked. The kitchen felt smaller with their expressions bearing down on me. "Mitchell, Natalie, and Mom, they've been in some twisted relationship behind my back." "Donna, too?" Robert asked, his voice a mix of shock and disappointment. I knew she could be selfish, but she did it. "And now I'm going to make sure they realize just how big a mistake it was," I said firmly. Robert reached out, placing a supportive hand on my shoulder. "You will get through this, Casey. We will help you." Looking at Robert and Erin's determined faces, I felt a surge of strength. I wasn't alone in this. With every step, I grew more resolved to cut these toxic ties and protect Hannah from the fallout. Mitchell, Natalie, and Donna thought I was just hurt. They had no idea what was coming their way. Erin's house became our sanctuary. Hannah adjusted to the change with the resilience only a child could muster, soothed by the presence of her doting aunt and stern but loving grandfather. Meanwhile, I threw myself into the legal proceedings. My lawyer, Denise, was a tough woman who didn't mince words. "We need to file for custody and get a restraining order if necessary," Denise said during our first meeting. "Protecting Hannah should be our #1 priority." I nodded. "I can't let her be around them. Not after what they've done. Yes, every detail matters. Keep it professional, but don't hold back anything relevant." Mitchell's response to the legal notice didn't take long. He was furious, calling and texting relentlessly. When we finally met in mediation, his eyes bore holes into mine. "This is ridiculous, Casey. We can work this out without dragging Hannah into it," he argued. "No, Mitchell, you lost that chance the moment you betrayed me," I shot back. His betrayal felt like an abyss between us, impossible to bridge. Our argument escalated until Denise intervened. "Let's keep it civil. We're here for Hannah's best interests." Mitchell fumed but didn't argue further. His lawyer tugged at his sleeve, signaling it was time to dial it down. But I knew the simmering rage and desperation hiding behind his calm facade. The scandal spread quickly through our community. Neighbors whispered behind their hands, social media buzzed with speculation. One day, dropping Hannah off at school, I overheard a couple of parents. "Did you hear about Casey's husband? Cheated on her with her best friend and her mother. Can you imagine?" I stiffened but walked on, head held high. This wasn't my shame to bear. But the public fallout hit its peak when Sam, Natalie's husband, stormed into the lawyer's office one day. His face was a mask of fury. "Casey, is it true? Natalie and Mitchell?" he demanded. "Yes," I said simply, meeting his gaze. "It's all true." Sam's face twisted with rage and hurt. "I knew something was off. I'm filing for divorce. She won't see a penny from me." His anger was a stark reflection of mine, and I felt a grim satisfaction knowing Natalie would face consequences beyond what I could enact. As the weeks went by, our strategy paid off. The court granted me full custody of Hannah, and Mitchell was ordered to pay alimony and child support. Publicly, the scandal wreaked havoc on his reputation. Donna found herself the target of disdain from her social circles. I never thought she'd go that low. I heard someone say at the grocery store, it was a small satisfaction, but satisfying nonetheless. Natalie, on the other hand, was dealing with Sam's impending divorce suit, a messy, ugly affair. Her once shimmering life was disintegrating. Through it all, Aaron and Robert stayed by my side, helping me rebuild. Their steadfast support was my lifeline. As the dust began to settle, Mitchell approached me one last time. His face was drawn, his eyes hollow. "Casey, is there any way we can start over?" I looked at him, the man who had once been my world, now alien to me. "No, Mitchell, we're done. You need to live with the choices you made. Hannah and I are moving on." Turning away, I felt a surge of relief. I had faced betrayal and found my strength. The road ahead wasn't clear, but at least it was mine to walk, free from deceit and betrayal. Life had settled into a new rhythm at Aaron's house. Hannah was adjusting well, and I finally felt a sense of control returning. But I wasn't done. The time had come for my revenge. Late one evening, after putting Hannah to bed, I sat down with Aaron. "It's time. I need to expose them," I said, my voice resolute. Aaron leaned in, her eyes full of determination. "What's your plan?" I pulled out my laptop and showed her the secret recordings I'd managed to collect over the past few weeks. Mitchell's confessions, Natalie's guilt-ridden ramblings, and Donna's shocking admissions. "These need to go public. People need to see who they really are," I explained. Aaron nodded. "Let's do it. They deserve everything coming their way." Together, we uploaded the videos to a hidden social media account and shared the links anonymously with several community groups and local news outlets. It didn't take long for the videos to go viral. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Comments poured in, expressing disdain and disbelief. The once respected Mitchell, Natalie, and Donna were now subjects of vicious gossip and public shaming. I received a text from Mitchell late that night. "Casey, you need to stop this. It's ruining us." I ignored it. There was no room for mercy. A few days later, I ran into Donna at the grocery store. She looked haggard, a shell of the woman she once was. "Casey, I can't go anywhere without people staring at me. How could you do this?" I met her eyes without flinching. "You did this to yourself, Mom. Actions have consequences." Natalie's life was unraveling too. Sam's divorce suit was the talk of the town. I heard through mutual friends that she'd been forced to leave her job. One evening, she called me, her voice trembling. "Casey, please, I'm begging you, stop this. I've lost everything." "Good," I replied coldly. "Now you know how it feels." Mitchell, desperate, showed up at Aaron's doorstep. Aaron stood firm, blocking his way. "You're not welcome here, Mitchell. Leave." He pleaded, "Please, Casey, I was wrong. I'll do anything to fix this." I stepped forward, my face a mask of resolve. "Fix it? There's no fixing this. You did this. Now live with it." With Mitchell gone and my revenge complete, I felt a strange sense of closure. Aaron and Robert's unwavering support had given me the strength to reclaim my life. It had been a long, painful journey, but I had survived and emerged stronger. Through the chaos, Hannah remained my beacon. One evening, as we sat together watching her favorite show, she turned to me and said, "Mommy, are we happy now?" I smiled, genuinely this time. "Yes, sweetie, we're happy." In the weeks that followed, Mitchell's life fell apart. He lost his job, became a pariah in the community, and was left to brood in his isolation. Donna and Natalie were similarly ostracized, struggling to rebuild their shattered reputations. As for me, I found peace in the simple joys, morning pancakes with Hannah, quiet evenings with Aaron and Robert, and the calm certainty that I had done the right thing. The web of deceit that once strangled my life was gone. Looking ahead, I saw a future filled with hope and new beginnings. Mitchell, Natalie, and Donna had tried to break me, but all they did was make me stronger. Standing in the warm sunlight, holding Hannah's hand, I knew that we had finally found our way out of the darkness, and there was no going back. Months passed, and a sense of normalcy slowly returned. Aaron's house had become a home for Hannah and me. The chaos created by Mitchell, Natalie, and Donna's betrayal was starting to feel like a distant nightmare. One sunny Saturday morning, Aaron and I were watching Hannah play in the backyard when the doorbell rang. It was Mitchell. He looked like a ghost of his former self, pale, tired, and aged beyond his years. "Can we talk, please?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Aaron stayed inside, ready to intervene if necessary. I stepped out onto the porch, folding my arms. "What do you want, Mitchell?" He struggled for words, desperation clear in his eyes. "I lost everything, Casey. My job, my friends, my life. I know I deserve it, but I need to see Hannah. Please." "She's doing fine without you. Better, in fact," I replied, not ready to soften. "Casey," he pleaded, "I know I can't fix what I did, but she's my daughter, too." "I don't want to miss her growing up," I sighed, feeling a conflict within. "You should have thought of that before you betrayed us." He nodded, a broken man. "I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to both of you if you'll let me." "Go home, Mitchell," I said warily. "I'll think about it." Back inside, Erin looked at me, concern etched on her face. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said, exhaling slowly. "Just dealing with the wreckage." My father, Robert, came by often, offering the kind of quiet support that spoke volumes. "You're doing great, Casey. Better than I ever expected." "Thanks, Dad," I said, appreciating his steady presence. His wisdom anchored me, reminding me of the simple truths that kept me grounded. Donna's attempts to mend our severed bond were less frequent but equally poignant. One afternoon she called. "Casey, I miss you. I'm so sorry for everything." "The damage is done, Mom," I answered with a sad finality. "It's going to take more than an apology to fix this." Over time, the sharp edges of betrayal dulled, replaced by a new focus, Hannah's future. We settled into a comfortable routine, life's small joys reminding me what mattered most. I threw myself into my work, finding new goals and achievements to pursue. One evening, as I tucked Hannah into bed, she looked up at me with bright eyes filled with trust. "Will Daddy ever come home?" I brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Maybe someday, sweetie, but remember, you're surrounded by people who love you. That's what matters." In the following months, Mitchell tried to rebuild his shattered life. The floor of rock bottom taught him humility he'd never known. Natalie and Donna, too, faced their own lonely paths, ostracized by friends and community. I received updates through the grapevine but kept my distance. Their struggles were theirs to bear, consequences of their choices. I was busy with something far more important, creating a safe, loving environment for Hannah. One day, walking hand in hand with Hannah through a park, I felt a sense of peace. "Mommy, look at the ducks," she shouted excitedly. I smiled, squeezing her tiny hand. "They're beautiful, aren't they?" For the first time in a long while, the future looked bright. I had faced the nightmare, fought my battles, and emerged stronger. The chains of betrayal had been broken, replaced by new hopes and dreams. Standing there, watching Hannah laugh and play, I knew we were going to be all right. Our story wasn't just about revenge, it was about rediscovering life, finding strength in the ruins, and building a future free from the shadows of deceit. The warm summer breeze carried the tantalizing aromas of freshly grilled meats and sizzling street food as I strolled through the bustling gourmet festival. My heart swelled with pride, knowing that my passion for promoting healthy eating habits had helped make this event a reality. Little did I know that this joyous occasion would soon take an unexpected turn, casting a dark shadow over the memories of my past. As I admired the vibrant array of local vendors showcasing their culinary creations, a familiar voice pierced through the lively chatter, sending a chill down my spine. "Well, if it isn't Lila, Fancy meeting you here." I whirled around, my breath caught in my throat as I came face to face with Mark, my ex-husband, accompanied by his new wife, Elise. A sudden wave of emotions washed over me. A potent mix of anger, resentment, and an undeniable twinge of envy at the sight of their polished appearances and the air of affluence that surrounded them. "Mark, Elise," I managed to utter, mustering a forced smile. "It's been a while." "Indeed, it has," Elise chimed in, her perfectly manicured nails glistening in the sunlight. "It's so nice to see you managing to keep yourself busy with, well, whatever it is you do these days." Her thinly veiled condescension stung, but I refused to let her words diminish the sense of accomplishment I'd worked so hard to cultivate. Before I could respond, Mark intervened, his tone dripping with false concern. "Lila, you're looking well. I trust your little nutrition business is keeping you occupied?" I bristled at his dismissive remark, but years of emotional turmoil had taught me to keep my composure. "It's more than just a little business, Mark. My work has a real impact on people's lives. Something you never seem to grasp." An uncomfortable silence descended upon us, the festive ambience suddenly muted by the weight of our shared history. Mark's eyes narrowed ever so slightly, and I could sense the tension brewing beneath his carefully crafted facade. "Well, we mustn't keep you any longer," Elise interjected, her saccharine smile masking a deeper disdain. "I'm sure you have clients to attend to." With a curt nod, they turned and disappeared into the crowd, leaving me to grapple with the conflicting emotions that threatened to overwhelm me. As I stood there, surrounded by the joyous laughter and the mouth-watering scents that had once brought me such delight, I couldn't help but feel a profound sense of loss, not for the man I had once loved, but for the naive, trusting woman I had been. As I walked away from the festival, my mind spiraled back to the fateful night that shattered my world. Mark's familiar silhouette appeared in the doorway, his face etched with guilt. "There's been an emergency at the hospital," he muttered, already halfway out the door before I could respond. This wasn't the first time he had been called away unexpectedly, and I had learned to accept the demands of his profession. But something felt different that night. A nagging sense of unease that I couldn't quite shake. Hours ticked by, and Mark's absence stretched longer than usual. Concern gave way to suspicion as I paced restlessly, unable to silence the doubts gnawing at the back of my mind. Finally, exhausted and desperate for answers, I decided to venture out and uncover the truth myself. The drive to the hospital was a blur, my knuckles white as I gripped the steering wheel with a mixture of determination and dread. But as I approached the familiar entrance, a sinking feeling consumed me. Mark's car was nowhere to be found. Panic set in, and I found myself wandering aimlessly, searching for any clue that might explain his disappearance. That's when I saw it. A sleek silver sedan parked in a secluded corner of the lot, its tinted windows offering no insight into its occupants. Summoning every ounce of courage, I crept closer, my heart pounding in my ears, and then a sound that would haunt me for years to come, laughter, followed by the unmistakable rustle of clothing and the muffled murmurs of intimacy. The world around me seemed to freeze as realization dawned, shattering the illusion of the life I thought I knew. Paralyzed by shock and disbelief, I stumbled away from the scene, my vision blurred by a torrent of tears. Weeks turned into months, and Mark's lies only compounded, each explanation more flimsy than the last. And yet, I clung to the fading hope that the man I loved still existed beneath the web of deceit. But fate had other plans. One fateful evening, as I was sorting through the mail, an innocuous envelope caught my eye. Inside, a series of incriminating photographs, proof of Mark's infidelity, captured in excruciatingly vivid detail. And there she was, the woman I would come to know as Elise, her smug grin searing itself into my memory like a brand. The confrontation that followed was explosive, a maelstrom of accusations and denials that culminated in a bitter separation. Mark, ever the smooth operator, wasted no time parading his new trophy wife before the world, leaving me to pick up the shattered pieces of my life. As I stood amidst the bustling festival, the memories of that harrowing time came flooding back, each carefully constructed lie Mark had fed me, replaying in my mind like a twisted mantra. But this time, I refused to be the victim. This time, I would have my revenge. In the aftermath of my divorce, I found solace in the one thing that had always brought me joy, my work. Pouring my energy into building a thriving nutrition consulting business, I slowly began to heal the deep wounds left by Mark's betrayal. It was during this time of personal growth that I met Owen, a kind-hearted widower and elementary school teacher. Our paths crossed at a local health fair, where his genuine interest in my work and gentle demeanor immediately put me at ease. "I admire your passion for helping others," he remarked as we chatted over steaming cups of herbal tea. "It's so refreshing to encounter someone who truly cares about making a positive impact." Our conversation flowed effortlessly, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I found myself laughing without the weight of past trauma holding me back. Owen's warm smile and genuine concern for my well-being were like a soothing balm on the scars left by Mark's deceit. As our friendship blossomed into something more, I couldn't help but marvel at the stark contrast between these two men. Where Mark had been consumed by ambition and a relentless pursuit of success, Owen embodied humility and a deep appreciation for the simple joys in life. "You know, Leela," he mused one evening as we strolled hand in hand through the park, "true wealth isn't measured by material possessions or status. It's found in the connections we forge, the lives we touch, and the legacy we leave behind." His words resonated deeply within me, a testament to the profound shift in my priorities and values. No longer was I captivated by the allure of wealth and prestige. Instead, I found myself drawn to Owen's unwavering integrity and his genuine concern for the well-being of those around him. With each passing day, the specter of my past faded, replaced by a newfound sense of purpose and a determination to embrace the second chance life had offered me. "You've been through so much," Owen remarked one night, his fingers gently caressing my cheek. "But your resilience and strength are an inspiration. I'm honored to be a part of your journey." As I gazed into his eyes, brimming with sincerity and understanding, I knew that this man represented everything I had been searching for: a partner who valued honesty, compassion, and the unbreakable bonds of trust. In that moment, I vowed to leave the ghosts of my past behind, to embrace the future with open arms, and to never again allow myself to be defined by the mistakes of others. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I was truly free. Months after my chance encounter with Mark and Elise at the food festival, I found myself attending a charity gala hosted by our city's most prominent organizations. As I adjusted the sleek, navy blue dress Owen had surprised me with, I couldn't help but feel a flutter of nervous anticipation. "You're going to be amazing tonight," Owen whispered, placing a reassuring kiss on my cheek as we made our way into the elegantly decorated ballroom. Little did I know that this evening would mark a turning point, a pivotal moment where the karmic scales would begin to shift in my favor. As the event unfolded, I mingled with colleagues and community leaders, sharing insights into the work I was so passionate about. Owen beamed with pride, never missing an opportunity to sing my praises to anyone within earshot. It was during one such conversation that I caught a glimpse of Mark and Elise entering the room, their designer outfits and air of self-importance impossible to miss. A familiar pang of resentment tugged at my heart, but before I could dwell on it, Owen swept me into his arms. "Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention?" he announced, his voice ringing out with confidence. "I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge someone truly special." As the room fell silent, Owen turned to me, his eyes shining with adoration. "Lila, your unwavering dedication to improving the lives of others through your work has been an inspiration to us all. Tonight, we celebrate you and the countless lives you've touched." A thunderous applause erupted as Owen presented me with a beautiful crystal plaque inscribed with words of gratitude from the community. In that moment, surrounded by the warmth and admiration of my peers, I felt a surge of empowerment unlike anything I'd ever experienced. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of Mark and Elise, their expressions a mixture of disbelief and barely concealed disdain. It was as if the universe had conspired to shine a spotlight on my accomplishments, forcing them to confront the glaring contrast between my life and theirs. As the evening drew to a close, I couldn't help but savor the sweet taste of vindication. Owen had orchestrated the perfect scenario, subtly but effectively showcasing the depth of my impact, while highlighting the shallowness of Mark and Elise's perceived superiority. On the drive home, I found myself reflecting on the twists and turns that had led me to this point. Once a victim of betrayal and emotional turmoil, I had emerged stronger, more resilient, and surrounded by those who truly valued me for who I was. And as for Mark and Elise, their presence at the gala had served as a stark reminder of the emptiness that lurked beneath their carefully curated facade, a hollow existence built on lies and superficial trappings. For the first time, I felt a sense of pity for them, realizing that no amount of wealth or status could compensate for the absence of genuine fulfillment and meaningful connections. As Owen's hand found mine, our fingers intertwining in a tender embrace, I knew that the path ahead would be one of triumph and personal growth, leaving the shadows of my past firmly in the rearview mirror. The charity gala had barely concluded when I found myself face to face with Mark and Elise once again. As Owen excused himself to grab us some refreshments, the tension in the air was palpable. Well, if it isn't the guest of honor," Elise sneered, her perfectly painted lips curling into a condescending smirk. "I must say that little display earlier was quite impressive." Mark remained silent, his eyes narrowed as he regarded me with a mix of disdain and something else, a flicker of envy, perhaps. I steeled myself, determined not to let their petty jabs pierce my newfound confidence. "Elise, always a pleasure," I replied, my tone laced with sarcasm. "I'm glad you enjoyed the evening. It's all in service of a good cause, after all." Her eyes narrowed, and I could see the wheels turning in her mind as she searched for a weakness to exploit. "Yes, well, we all have our hobbies, don't we?" she quipped. "Some choose to make a real difference, while others settle for playing nutritionist to the masses." The barb stung, but before I could respond, Owen reappeared by my side, his presence serving as a steadying force. "Mark, Elise," he greeted them warmly, his arm snaking around my waist in a protective embrace. "I hope you've been enjoying yourselves. Lila's work is truly inspiring, isn't it?" Elise opened her mouth to retort, but Owen cut her off with a disarming smile. "In fact, I've been considering getting more involved myself. Perhaps you could enlighten me on the inner workings of your business ventures, Mark." The shift in tone was subtle, but unmistakable. Owen's words carried an undercurrent of veiled accusation, as if he possessed knowledge that extended far beyond the superficial realm of Mark's supposed success. Mark visibly tensed, his eyes darting between Owen and me, searching for any sign of weakness or vulnerability. But he found none, for in that moment I felt an overwhelming sense of empowerment, bolstered by Owen's unwavering support. "Yes, Mark, do tell us about your endeavors," I echoed, my voice steady and assured. "I'm sure we'd all love to hear about the sacrifices you've made to achieve your aspirations." The air grew thick with tension, charged with unspoken truths and barely concealed barbs. Elise's eyes narrowed, sensing the shift in power dynamics, while Mark's carefully constructed facade began to crack, revealing glimpses of the insecurity and guilt that festered beneath. In that moment, I knew that the tide had turned. No longer was I the one cowering in the shadows, haunted by the echoes of betrayal. Instead, I stood tall, emboldened by the knowledge that karma was slowly but surely exacting its due. As Mark and Elise beat a hasty retreat, their excuses falling flat, I couldn't help but feel a surge of satisfaction course through my veins. This was merely the beginning, a premonition of the reckoning that awaited them, a harbinger of the retribution they so richly deserved. Owen's hand found mine, his fingers intertwining with mine in a silent gesture of solidarity. "You're incredible, you know that?" he murmured, his eyes shining with a mixture of pride and admiration. And in that moment, surrounded by the echoes of our hard-won victory, I knew that the path ahead would be one paved with redemption and the sweet taste of long-awaited justice. Weeks after the charity gala, I found myself standing alongside Mark at a prominent community health conference. As we awaited our turn to speak on the panel, the tension between us was thicker than the humid summer air. Owen, ever the supportive partner, sat in the front row, his eyes shining with pride as he watched me prepare to take the stage. Little did Mark know, Owen had a few surprises up his sleeve, surprises that would soon unravel the carefully crafted facade that Mark had spent years constructing. As I took my seat behind the sleek podium, my confidence soared, fueled by the knowledge that Owen had orchestrated a powerful alliance with one of the event's major sponsors. The stage was set for Mark's downfall, and I could hardly contain my anticipation. Mark's speech was a masterclass in self-aggrandizement, filled with grandiose claims and thinly veiled boasts about his supposed contributions to the medical field. I watched with a mixture of amusement and disgust as he basked in the fleeting admiration of the audience, oblivious to the impending storm brewing on the horizon. When my turn came, I rose to the podium with a newfound confidence, my words carrying the weight of hard-earned wisdom and a steadfast commitment to truth. As I spoke of the transformative power of nutrition and the importance of community outreach, I could see Mark's expression shift, his bravado slowly giving way to a flicker of unease. But the true coup de grace came when Owen took the stage, his presence commanding an air of authority that caught even me by surprise. With a few well-chosen words, he revealed his connection to the event's major sponsor, a prestigious health initiative, and announced his intention to collaborate closely with my endeavors. The impact was immediate and palpable. Suddenly, my credibility and professional standing were elevated to new heights, casting a shadow over Mark's carefully cultivated image. And as if on cue, Elise's face contorted into a mask of barely concealed rage, her eyes burning with envy and resentment. It was in that moment of triumph that Elise made her fatal mistake. Rising from her seat, she attempted to undermine my speech with a barrage of snide remarks and thinly veiled insults. But her words fell flat, and instead of diminishing my accomplishments, she only succeeded in exposing her own deceitful nature to the entire audience. As whispers and gasps of disbelief rippled through the crowd, Elise's true colors were laid bare for all to see, a desperate, vindictive woman willing to stoop to any depths to maintain her illusion of superiority. And in that moment, the karmic scales tipped inexorably in my favor. Mark, paralyzed by the unfolding spectacle, could only watch in horror as his once powerful facade crumbled before his eyes. The audience that had once hung on his every word now regarded him with a mixture of pity and disdain, their respect eroded by the harsh light of truth. As the conference drew to a close, I found myself surrounded by well-wishers and newfound allies, each one eager to congratulate me on my triumph and distance themselves from the toxicity that had enveloped Mark and Elise. And in the midst of it all, Owen stood by my side, his arm draped around my shoulders, in a silent declaration of solidarity and unwavering support. "You did it," he murmured, his eyes shining with pride. "You exposed them for who they truly are." And in that moment, I knew that the path to redemption had been paved, the karmic scales finally balancing in my favor after years of suffering and betrayal. The aftermath of the community conference was a whirlwind of congratulations and newfound alliances, but the true reckoning was yet to come. As Owen and I made our way to the after-party, arm in arm, I could sense the palpable tension in the air. Mark and Elise were already there, huddled in a corner with a few of their remaining allies, their expressions a mixture of barely concealed rage and desperation. As our eyes met, Elise's lips curled into a snarl, her perfectly manicured nails digging into the stem of her wineglass. But before she could launch into another tirade of insults and accusations, a voice rang out from across the room, cutting through the din like a knife. "Mark, is it true?" The question came from a mild-mannered colleague of Mark's, a man whose quiet demeanor had always made him fade into the background. But tonight, his eyes burned with a newfound intensity, fueled by the revelations that had unfolded during the conference. Mark's face paled as he turned to face the man, his mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. "Is it true that you've been falsifying patient records?" the man pressed, his voice steadily rising. "That you've been prioritizing your own financial gain over the well-being of those you've sworn to protect?" A hush fell over the room as the weight of the accusation sank in. Suddenly, the whispers and rumors that had swirled around Mark's unethical practices crystallized into a damning reality, laid bare for all to see. Elise's perfectly composed mask began to crack, her eyes darting frantically between Mark and the growing crowd of onlookers. But it was too late. The floodgates had opened, and a torrent of long-repressed truths came surging forth. One by one, colleagues and former associates stepped forward, their voices rising in a chorus of condemnation. Stories of Mark's lies, his manipulations, and his callous disregard for the well-being of others echoed through the room, each revelation more damning than the last. And at the center of it all stood Owen, his quiet presence a beacon of integrity amidst the chaos. With a few carefully chosen words, he connected the dots between Mark's professional misdeeds and his personal betrayals, painting a vivid picture of a man consumed by greed and ambition. As the night wore on, the walls seemed to close in around Mark and Elise, their once formidable empire crumbling under the weight of their own deceit. Colleagues who had once fawned over them now turned their backs, their admiration replaced by scorn and disgust. And through it all, I stood tall, my hand clasped firmly in Owen's, a silent witness to the poetic justice unfolding before my eyes. For years, I had been the victim, cowering in the shadows of Mark's lies and Elise's cruelty. But now the tables had turned, and I basked in the sweet taste of long-awaited retribution. As the night drew to a close, and the last of Mark's supporters slunk away in defeat, I found myself surrounded by a sea of friendly faces, colleagues, community leaders, and newfound allies who had witnessed my triumph and rallied to my side. And in the midst of it all, Owen pulled me close, his eyes shining with a mixture of pride and admiration. "You did it," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "You stood your ground, and the truth prevailed." In that moment I knew that the path to redemption had been forged, paved with the remnants of Mark and Elise's shattered facade. The scales of karma had finally balanced, and a new chapter of my life was just beginning. The soft glow of candlelight danced across the intimate confines of the cozy restaurant, casting warm hues over the faces of the small gathering. Owen's hand found mine beneath the tablecloth, his fingers intertwining with my own as I surveyed the smiling faces of those who had stood by me through the tumultuous journey. As glasses clinked and laughter filled the air, I couldn't help but reflect on the winding path that had led me here. A path paved with heartbreak, betrayal, and ultimately redemption. "A toast," Owen announced, rising to his feet and raising his glass, "to new beginnings and the strength to overcome adversity." A chorus of cheers erupted, echoing through the dimly lit space as we celebrated not just my personal triumph, but the resilience of the human spirit itself. In the aftermath of the conference, the dominoes of Mark and Elise's downfall had continued to fall, one after another. Professional censures, legal battles, and a steadily dwindling circle of allies had left them isolated and disgraced, their once formidable reputations in tatters. But tonight wasn't about them. It was about embracing the future and the boundless possibilities that lay ahead. As the evening wore on, conversations ebbed and flowed, punctuated by bursts of laughter and the clinking of silverware against plates. And through it all, Owen remained by my side, his unwavering support a constant source of strength and inspiration. It was during a lull in the conversation that he gently cleared his throat, his eyes shining with a mixture of love and determination. "Leela," he began, his voice steady and assured, "from the moment we met, you've been an inspiration, a beacon of resilience and unwavering commitment to what truly matters in life." A hush fell over the table as he reached into his pocket, producing a small, velvet box. My breath caught in my throat as he lowered himself to one knee, the flickering candlelight dancing across his face. "You've shown me the true meaning of courage and perseverance, and I can't imagine walking this journey without you by my side. Lila, will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" The room seemed to fade away as I gazed into Owen's eyes, our shared history and the promise of a future together crystallizing in that single, pivotal moment. Tears of joy streaked down my cheeks as I nodded, rendered speechless by the depth of emotion swirling within me. A thunderous applause erupted, our friends and allies rising to their feet in a chorus of celebration. As Owen slipped the ring onto my finger, a symbolic gesture of our commitment, I knew that this moment marked the beginning of a new chapter, one defined not by the shadows of the past, but by the radiant promise of a future built on love, trust, and the unwavering bond we shared. In that moment, I realized that the long, arduous journey had been worth it. Every heartache, every betrayal, every tear shed had led me to this point, this moment of profound joy and redemption. As I gazed around the table at the faces of those who had become my chosen family, I knew that the path ahead would be one of growth, healing, and the unbreakable bonds forged through shared experiences. And as for Mark and Elise, their names faded into the recesses of my mind, eclipsed by the overwhelming sense of gratitude and contentment that washed over me. For in the end, karma had indeed run its course, and I had emerged victorious, not through acts of vengeance or bitterness, but by embracing the power of forgiveness and letting go of the past that had once held me captive. As Owen's lips met mine in a tender kiss, I knew that this was the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with the promise of a future built on love, trust, and the unbreakable bonds that had sustained me through the darkest of times. And in that moment, I was truly blissfully free. The shrill ring of my phone pierced the quiet of my kitchen. I wiped my hands on my apron and answered, expecting to hear Rachel's cheerful voice. Instead, my daughter's sobs crackled through the speaker. "Mom, I can't stand living here anymore," Rachel wailed. "They treat me like a stranger and won't let me visit Dad." My heart clenched. "Sweetheart, slow down. What's going on?" "Aunt Linda and Uncle Gary," she hiccuped. "They're awful. I feel like a prisoner." I gripped the counter, steadying myself. "What do you mean they won't let you visit your father?" "They say he's a bad influence," Rachel sniffled, "that I shouldn't waste my time with him. Mom, I want to come home." "Of course, honey," I said, my mind racing. "We'll figure this out, I promise." As soon as we hung up, I dialed Robert's number. My husband answered on the third ring, his voice gruff. "Evelyn? What's wrong?" "It's Rachel," I said. "She just called hysterical. Did you know Linda and Gary have been keeping her from seeing you?" Robert sighed heavily. "Come on, Ev, you know how dramatic teenagers can be." "This isn't drama, Robert," I snapped. "Your sister is manipulating our daughter, again." "Now, hold on," he started, but I cut him off. "No, you hold on. Our daughter is hurting and you're defending Linda. When are you going to put our family first?" The line went quiet for a moment. "Let me talk to Linda," Robert finally said. "I'm sure that there's been some misunderstanding." I laughed bitterly. "Oh, I'm sure there has been, but not the kind you're thinking." After hanging up, I paced the kitchen, my mind whirling. Linda had always been a thorn in my side, but this was a new low. I thought back to the day Rachel announced she was moving in with her aunt and uncle. Linda had been so sickeningly sweet, promising to guide Rachel through her college years. The doorbell startled me from my thoughts. I opened the front door to find my best friend, Patricia, holding a bottle of wine. "I could hear you fuming from down the street," she said with a wry smile. "Thought you might need this." I ushered her inside, grateful for the company. As we settled on the couch, I filled Patricia in on Rachel's call and Robert's dismissive response. Patricia's eyes widened. "That witch," she muttered. "And Robert's still making excuses for her?" I nodded, taking a long sip of wine. "I don't know what to do, Pat. I can't just sit here while Linda poisons Rachel against us." "Then don't," Patricia said firmly. "Fight back. You've let Linda walk all over you for years. It's time to show her you're not going to take it anymore." I stared at my friend, a mix of fear and determination bubbling up inside me. "You're right," I said slowly. "But how?" Patricia leaned forward, her eyes glinting. "We start digging. Linda's bound to have skeletons in her closet. Find them and use them." As we brainstormed, my phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. "Aunt Linda took my phone, using Gary's iPad. Please help." My hands shook as I showed Patricia the message. "That's it," I said, standing up. "I'm going over there right now." Patricia grabbed my arm. "Wait, Evelyn, we need a plan. Charging in there will only make things worse." I sank back onto the couch, deflated. "You're right, but I can't just abandon Rachel." "We won't," Patricia assured me. "But we need to be smart about this. Linda's played this game for years. It's time to beat her at it." As we plotted our next move, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a long, painful battle. But for Rachel's sake, I was ready to fight. Linda had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I marched into Robert's study, determined to make him see reason. He looked up from his laptop, his brow furrowing at my expression. "We need to talk about Rachel," I said, my voice tight with frustration. Robert sighed, leaning back in his chair. "Evelyn, I told you it's just teenage drama. Linda wouldn't." "Stop defending her!" I snapped. "Our daughter is miserable, and you're brushing it off like it's nothing." "You're overreacting," Robert said, his tone patronizing. Rachel's always been sensitive, she'll adjust. I felt my temper flare. Overreacting? Robert, they're controlling her every move. How can you not see what's happening? Before he could respond, my phone buzzed. It was Rachel, using Gary's iPad again. My heart raced as I read her message. Uncle Gary told me you and Dad are planning to divorce. Is it true? I showed Robert the text, watching the color drain from his face. Still think I'm overreacting? I asked coldly. Robert's jaw clenched. I'll talk to Gary. This is getting out of hand. Getting out of hand? I laughed bitterly. It's been out of hand since the day Rachel moved in with them. Why can't you stand up to your sister for once? You don't understand, Robert muttered, avoiding my gaze. It's complicated. Then explain it to me, I demanded. What hold does Linda have over you? Robert's silence spoke volumes. I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized there was more to this story than I knew. Robert, I said slowly, what aren't you telling me? He opened his mouth to respond when Rachel burst through the front door, tears streaming down her face. We rushed to meet her in the hallway. Rachel, honey, what happened? I asked, pulling her into a hug. Between sobs, she choked out, I heard Aunt Linda on the phone. She was talking about Dad, about some woman named Melissa. I felt Robert stiffen beside me. What about Melissa? He asked, his voice strained. Rachel looked up at him, her eyes wide. She said you had an affair with her, that you have another kid. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I stumbled back, staring at Robert in disbelief. Is this true? Robert's face crumpled. Evelyn, I can explain. I cut him off, my voice ice cold. Just don't. Rachel looked between us, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. I'm sorry, she whispered. I shouldn't have said anything. I pulled her close, stroking her hair. No, sweetheart, you did the right thing. This isn't your fault. Robert reached out, but I flinched away. Both of you just give me a minute, I said, retreating to the kitchen. My hands shook as I gripped the counter, trying to process this bombshell. An affair, another child. How long had Linda known? How long had she been using this to manipulate Robert? I heard hushed voices from the hallway, then footsteps approaching. Robert appeared in the doorway, his face a mask of guilt and fear. Evelyn, he began, I know I've made mistakes, but mistakes? I interrupted, my voice rising. You call this a mistake? How long, Robert? How long have you been lying to me? He flinched at my words. It was years ago, before Rachel was born. I never meant for any of this to happen. I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. And Linda's known all this time, hasn't she? That's why you always take her side. She's been blackmailing you. Robert's silence was all the confirmation I needed. I felt a surge of determination, tinged with rage. Well, I said, straightening up, it ends now. I won't let Linda use this to control our family anymore. And you, I pointed at Robert, you have a lot of explaining to do. To me and to your daughter. As I brushed past him to comfort Rachel, I realized this was just the beginning. The battle lines were drawn, and I was ready for war. The annual Parker family barbecue was always a tense affair, but this year, the air crackled with unspoken accusations and barely concealed hostility. I stood at the grill, flipping burgers with more force than necessary, my eyes constantly darting to Linda's smug face across the yard. Rachel huddled near me, her eyes downcast. Mom, I don't want to be here, she whispered. I know, sweetie, I murmured. We'll leave soon, I promise. Robert approached, his face a mask of forced cheerfulness. Everything okay over here? Before I could answer, Linda sauntered over, Gary trailing behind her like an obedient puppy. Oh, Robert, she cooed. I was just telling everyone how proud we are of Rachel. She's become such a wonderful little housekeeper at our place. I felt Rachel stiffen beside me. What do you mean? I asked, my voice dangerously low. Linda's smile was saccharine. Well, she's just so good at keeping things tidy. Dishes, laundry, you name it. We hardly have to lift a finger anymore. That's not Rachel's job, I snapped. She's there to focus on her studies, not be your maid. Now, Evelyn, Linda skied, don't be so sensitive. Rachel needs to learn responsibility. Responsibility? I echoed, my temper flaring. Is that what you call exploiting my daughter? Robert stepped between us. Ladies, please, this isn't the time or place. I rounded on him. And when is the time, Robert? When are you going to stand up for your daughter? The gathering had gone quiet, all eyes on our little group. Linda's smile never wavered. Your daughter is just like you, Evelyn, always overreacting. Something inside me snapped. Overreacting? You've been manipulating and controlling Rachel since the day she moved in. You've restricted her allowance, cut her off from her friends, and now I find out you've been using her as free labor? Linda's eyes narrowed. You ungrateful little... That's enough. Robert's voice boomed across the yard. For a moment, I thought he was finally taking our side, but then he turned to me, his expression cold. Evelyn, you're making a scene. Maybe you should take Rachel home. I stared at him in disbelief. You're still defending her? After everything? Rachel tugged at my sleeve. Mom, please, can we just go? I nodded, my heart breaking for my daughter. As we turned to leave, Linda called out, Oh, Rachel, dear, don't forget you promised to help me with the church fundraiser next weekend. Rachel froze. I can't, she stammered. I have plans with Mom. Linda's eyes glittered. But you promised, dear, you wouldn't want to disappoint the whole congregation, would you? I saw the conflict on Rachel's face and made a split-second decision. Actually, Linda, I said, my voice steady, Rachel won't be available. She's moving back home, today. The silence that followed was deafening. Linda's face contorted with rage. You can't do that, she hissed. Watch me, I retorted, putting an arm around Rachel's shoulders. As we walked away, I heard Linda's shrill voice behind us. Robert, are you going to let her do this? After everything we've done for you? I didn't wait to hear Robert's response. In the car, Rachel burst into tears. I'm sorry, Mom. I should have told you sooner about everything. I squeezed her hand. This isn't your fault, sweetheart. We're going to fix this, I promise. As we drove home, my mind raced. I knew this was far from over. Linda wouldn't let Rachel go without a fight, and I had a sinking feeling that Robert would once again side with his sister. But looking at Rachel's tear-stained face, I felt a fierce determination well up inside me. No matter what it took, I would protect my daughter and expose Linda's manipulations. The gloves were off, and I was ready for battle. The moment Robert walked through the door that evening, I was ready for him. Rachel had gone to bed early, exhausted from the day's events, leaving us alone to confront the elephant in the room. We need to talk, I said, my voice steady despite the anger simmering beneath the surface. Robert sighed, loosening his tie. Evelyn, if this is about the barbecue... This is about everything, I cut him off. Your sister, your daughter, your complete inability to stand up for your family. His face hardened. That's not fair. You know how complicated things are with Linda. Complicated? I laughed bitterly. What I know is that our daughter was miserable living with her, and you did nothing. Linda was trying to help, Robert argued weakly. I felt my temper flare. Help? By treating Rachel like a servant? By cutting her off from her friends and family? You're exaggerating, he muttered, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. Am I? I challenged. Then explain to me why you stood there and let Linda humiliate me in front of everyone, why you're always taking her side over ours. Robert's shoulders slumped. It's not that simple, Evelyn. Linda, she knows things. About me, about our family, things that could destroy us if they came out. I felt a chill run down my spine. What things, Robert? What could possibly justify letting your sister treat your daughter this way? He opened his mouth to respond when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Linda. You think you've won? Think again. Rachel comes back, or everyone learns Robert's dirty little secret. I showed Robert the message, watching the color drain from his face. What secret, Robert? I demanded. What does she have on you? He collapsed into a chair, his head in his hands. I made a mistake years ago. Before Rachel was born, there was another woman, and there's a child. Linda's the only one who knows. The room seemed to spin. I gripped the back of a chair to steady myself. You have another child? I whispered, my voice barely audible. Robert nodded miserably. I've been paying child support in secret all these years. Linda found out, and she's been using it to control me ever since. Rage and betrayal warred within me. How could you keep this from me? From Rachel? I was afraid, he admitted. Afraid of losing you, of hurting Rachel. Linda swore she'd keep it secret if I did what she wanted. And what she wanted was to control our lives, I said bitterly. To drive a wedge between us and Rachel. Robert reached for my hand, but I pulled away. Evelyn, please. I know I've made terrible mistakes, but I love you and Rachel more than anything. We can fix this. I stared at him, seeing him clearly for the first time in years. A man torn between loyalty to his sister and love for his family, paralyzed by fear and guilt. You're right, I said slowly. We can fix this, but not by giving in to Linda's blackmail. Robert's eyes widened. What are you saying? I straightened up, a plan forming in my mind. I'm saying it's time we take control of our own story. We tell Rachel the truth, all of it, and then we confront Linda together. But the scandal, the family. The family is already in shambles, I interrupted. At least this way we're being honest. It's the only way to break Linda's hold over us. Robert looked terrified, but I saw a glimmer of hope in his eyes. You'd stand by me, even after learning this? I took a deep breath. I'm furious with you, Robert, but I love our family too much to let Linda destroy it. We'll deal with your betrayal, but first we need to unite against the real enemy. As I spoke the words, I felt a surge of determination. The path ahead would be difficult, but for the first time in years, I felt like we had a fighting chance. Okay, Robert said quietly. Let's do it. Let's tell Rachel everything. I nodded, steeling myself for the conversation that would change our family forever. Whatever came next, we would face it together. The morning after our confrontation, Robert and I sat Rachel down to tell her everything. Her face crumpled as Robert confessed to his affair and the existence of her half-sibling. I held her hand tightly, my heart breaking as I watched her world shift beneath her feet. Why now? Rachel asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Why tell me this after all these years? I took a deep breath. Because Aunt Linda has been using this information to control us, sweetheart, and we're not going to let her do that anymore. Rachel's eyes flashed with anger. So that's why you always let her walk all over us, Dad? Because you were afraid of your own mistakes? Robert nodded, shame etched across his face. I'm so sorry, Rachel. I thought I was protecting our family, but I was just making things worse. As we talked through the implications, my phone buzzed incessantly. I ignored it, focusing on comforting Rachel. But when I finally checked, my blood ran cold. Linda had been busy. There were messages from family members, friends, even our neighbors, all of them expressing shock, disappointment, and in some cases outright disgust. Linda had spread the news of Robert's affair far and wide, twisting the narrative to paint me as the villain who had torn the family apart by overreacting to an ancient indiscretion. She's turned everyone against us, I said, my voice shaking with fury and disbelief. Rachel grabbed my phone, scrolling through the messages with wide eyes. How could she do this? Doesn't she care about how this affects me? Linda only cares about control, Robert said bitterly. She's always been that way, even when we were kids. I stood up, pacing the room as my mind raced. We need to fight back. We can't let her narrative be the only one out there. Just then, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Patricia, her face etched with concern. Evelyn, I came as soon as I heard. Are you okay? I ushered her in, grateful for a friendly face. As we filled Patricia in on the full story, including Robert's confession, her expression hardened. This ends now, Patricia declared. Linda's gone too far. We need to expose her for the manipulative snake she is. Rachel, who had been quiet, suddenly spoke up. I want to help. I'm tired of being a pawn in Aunt Linda's games. I looked at my daughter, seeing a determination in her eyes that mirrored my own. Are you sure, sweetheart? This could get ugly. She nodded firmly. I'm sure, Mom, it's time we stood up for ourselves. As we began to strategize, another text came through. This time it was from Gary, Linda's husband. Evelyn, we need to talk. Linda's gone too far. I have information that could help you. I showed the message to the others, a mix of hope and suspicion coursing through me. Could this be the break we needed, or another of Linda's traps? It could be a setup, Robert warned. Or it could be our chance to turn the tables, Patricia countered. I looked at each of their faces, Robert's guilt-ridden but determined, Rachel's fierce and ready for battle, Patricia's supportive and strategic. In that moment, I knew what I had to do. I'm meeting Gary, I announced. But I'm not going alone. We're in this together now. As we prepared to face whatever Gary had in store, I felt a shift in the air. The fear and shame that had clouded our family for so long was lifting, replaced by a united front against Linda's tyranny. Whatever happens, I said, looking at my family and friend, we face it as one. Linda's reign of manipulation ends today. With those words, we stepped out into the uncertain future, ready to reclaim our lives and our family's honor. The battle ahead would be tough, but for the first time in years I felt hope blooming in my chest. We had the truth on our side, and together, we were stronger than any lie Linda could spin. The cafe where we agreed to meet Gary was bustling with the lunch crowd, but I barely noticed the noise. My heart pounded as I sat with Patricia, Robert, and Rachel, waiting for Linda's husband to arrive. "Are you sure about this?" Robert asked for the 100th time. I nodded, my jaw set. "We need to know what Gary has to say. It might be our only chance to turn the tables on Linda." Rachel squeezed my hand. "We're with you, Mom, no matter what." Just then Gary walked in, looking nervous and disheveled. He slid into the booth, his eyes darting around as if expecting Linda to appear at any moment. "Thank you for meeting us," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You said you had information?" Gary nodded, pulling out a USB drive. "Linda's gone too far this time. I can't be part of it anymore. This drive contains financial records, emails, everything that shows how Linda's been manipulating the family for years." My hands shook as I took the drive. "Why are you doing this, Gary? Why now?" He looked down, shame etched across his face. "I should have done it years ago. But Linda, she has a way of making you feel like you have no choice. But when she started messing with Rachel's future, I knew I had to do something." "What do you mean, messing with my future?" Rachel asked, her voice sharp. Gary sighed heavily. "Linda's been siphoning money from your grandfather's estate, money that was meant for your education, Rachel. She's been using it to fund her own lifestyle and to keep people in line." The shock around the table was palpable. Patricia was the first to recover. "We need to go through those files immediately. If what Gary's saying is true, we have more than enough to expose Linda's manipulations." As we prepared to leave, Gary grabbed my arm. "Be careful, Evelyn. Linda's desperate. She knows she's losing control, and that makes her dangerous." I nodded, a chill running down my spine. "Thank you, Gary, for everything." Back at home, we huddled around my laptop as Patricia, tech-savvy as ever, combed through the files on the drive. With each document she opened, the depth of Linda's deceit became clearer. "Look at this," Patricia said, pointing to an email chain. "Linda's been blackmailing half the family. She's got dirt on everyone, and she's been using it to keep them in line." Rachel gasped as she read over Patricia's shoulder. "She even tried to sabotage my college applications. How could she do this?" I felt a rage building inside me, hot and fierce, because she's a control freak who can't stand the idea of anyone challenging her power. As we delved deeper into Linda's web of lies, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "I know what you're doing. Meet me at the old boathouse in an hour, or everything you care about goes up in flames." I showed the others, watching their faces pale. "It has to be Linda," Robert said. "She must have found out about Gary." "You can't go," Rachel pleaded. "It's too dangerous." But I knew I had no choice. This was our chance to end Linda's reign of terror once and for all. "I have to," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "But I'm not going alone. We face this together, remember?" As we piled into the car, heading towards the confrontation that would change everything, I felt a mix of fear and determination. Linda had pushed us to the brink, but we were pushing back. Whatever happened at that boathouse, I knew one thing for certain. Our family would never be the same again. The old boathouse loomed before us, dark and foreboding against the setting sun. As we approached, I gripped the USB drive in my pocket, our secret weapon against Linda's years of manipulation. This was it, the moment of truth. With a deep breath, I pushed open the creaking door, ready to face whatever Linda had in store for us. As we entered the dimly lit boathouse, my heart pounded in my chest. Linda stood in the center, her face a mask of fury and desperation. Gary hovered behind her, looking torn and afraid. Well, Linda sneered. "The whole gang's here. How touching." I stepped forward, gripping the USB drive in my pocket. "It's over, Linda. We know everything." She laughed, a brittle sound that sent chills down my spine. "You think you know everything? You have no idea what I'm capable of." Robert moved to stand beside me. "Linda, please, this has gone on long enough. Let's talk about this like family." "Family," Linda spat. "You gave up the right to call me family when you chose her over me." She pointed at me, her eyes blazing with hatred. Rachel stepped forward, her voice trembling but determined. "Aunt Linda, why? Why did you try to sabotage my future?" For a moment, Linda's mask slipped, revealing a flicker of shame, but it was quickly replaced by cold anger. "Because you're just like your mother, always taking what should have been mine. What are you talking about? I demanded. Linda's laugh was bitter. Oh, poor naive Evelyn. Did you really think Robert chose you? He was supposed to marry my best friend. I had it all planned out, but then you came along and ruined everything. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. I turned to Robert, searching his face for the truth. He looked stricken. Linda, that was years ago. I fell in love with Evelyn. It had nothing to do with your plans. Liar! Linda shrieked. She pulled out a gun, waving it wildly. You've all ruined everything, but I'm not going down alone. Time seemed to slow down. I saw Rachel's terrified face, Robert's protective stance, Patricia's hand reaching for her phone, and in that moment I knew what I had to do. Linda, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I have proof of everything you've done, the blackmail, the stolen money, all of it. I pulled out the USB drive. If anything happens to us, this information goes public. You'll lose everything. Linda's hand wavered, the gun shaking in her grip. You're bluffing. Am I? I took a step closer, my heart racing. You've spent years manipulating this family, Linda, but it ends now. We're not your puppets anymore. Gary suddenly moved, grabbing Linda's arm. She's right, Linda. It's over. Please, don't make this worse. For a tense moment, I thought Linda might pull the trigger anyway, but then, like a deflating balloon, all the fight seemed to leave her. The gun clattered to the floor, and she collapsed into sobs. As Gary comforted his wife, I turned to my family. Rachel threw herself into my arms, crying with relief. Robert embraced us both, whispering apologies and words of love. Patricia, ever practical, was already on the phone with the police. It's done, she mouthed to me over Rachel's shoulder. As we waited for the authorities to arrive, I felt a strange mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. We had faced our demons and come out the other side. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There were still wounds to heal, trusts to rebuild. But for the first time in years, I felt hope blossoming in my chest. Linda's reign of terror was over. Our family had been tested, pushed to the brink, but we had survived. As I held my daughter and husband close, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. The sound of sirens in the distance signaled the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. As the blue lights flashed through the boathouse windows, I took a deep breath, ready to step into our new future. Scarred, but stronger for having weathered the storm. The weeks following the confrontation at the boathouse were a whirlwind of legal proceedings, family therapy sessions, and long, difficult conversations. Linda and Gary faced the consequences of their actions, both legally and within the family. As I watched them leave the courthouse after their sentencing, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. The Linda I once knew was gone, consumed by her own bitterness and jealousy. Our family gathered at our home for the first time since everything had come to light. The tension in the air was palpable as aunts, uncles, and cousins filed in, their faces a mix of confusion, hurt, and hope. I stood in the center of the living room, my heart pounding. Thank you all for coming, I began, my voice shaky but determined. We've been through a lot as a family, and it's time we face the truth together. Over the next hour, with Robert and Rachel by my side, we laid bare the years of manipulation, the stolen money, and the web of lies Linda had spun. There were gasps of shock, tears of betrayal, and moments of stunned silence. We're not here to point fingers, Robert said, his voice thick with emotion. We're here to heal, to rebuild the trust that was broken. As the truth sank in, I saw a change come over our family. The walls of suspicion and resentment began to crumble, replaced by a tentative understanding. Aunt Margaret, Linda's staunchest supporter, approached me with tears in her eyes. Evelyn, I'm so sorry. We had no idea. Can you ever forgive us? I hugged her tightly, my own tears falling. There's nothing to forgive. We were all victims of Linda's manipulations. What matters now is that we move forward together. As the evening wore on, the atmosphere shifted. Stories were shared, old wounds acknowledged, and the first tentative steps toward reconciliation were taken. It wasn't perfect. There were still moments of tension and awkward silences, but it was a start. Later that night, as the last of the family left, Robert, Rachel, and I sat together on the porch swing. The weight of the past weeks, months, and years seemed to lift slightly as we gazed at the stars. Mom, Rachel said softly, I'm proud of us, for standing up to Aunt Linda, for telling the truth. I squeezed her hand. Me too, sweetheart. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Robert cleared his throat. Evelyn, Rachel, I know I have a lot to make up for. My blindness to Linda's manipulations, my failure to protect our family. I'm so sorry. I promise to do better, to be the husband and father you both deserve. I looked at him, seeing the genuine remorse and love in his eyes. It won't be easy, I said honestly. We have a lot of trust to rebuild, but we'll do it together, day by day. Rachel leaned her head on my shoulder. We've been through so much, she murmured. Do you think we'll ever be okay? I wrapped my arms around my daughter, pulling Robert closer too. We will, I said, feeling a surge of hope in my chest. We've been through the fire, and we've come out stronger. Together, we can overcome anything. As we sat there, our little family unit holding tight to each other, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There were still wounds to heal, trusts to mend, and a family to rebuild. But for the first time in a long time, I was excited for the future. Linda's shadow no longer loomed over us. We were free to write our own story, to build the kind of loving, supportive family we all deserved. And as I looked at Robert and Rachel, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them united. The night air was cool, filled with the promise of new beginnings. As we sat there, wrapped in each other's arms, I realized that this wasn't just an ending. It was a beautiful new start. I took a deep breath, smoothing my hands over my navy blue skirt suit as I stepped into the bustling state building lobby. Today was the big day, my interview for the senior correspondent position at the governor's office. This opportunity could be a game changer for my career. As a single mom, balancing work and raising my 8-year-old daughter Haley was a constant juggling act, but I was determined to make it work. The assistant at the front desk greeted me with a polite smile. Miss Carter? The governor's team is ready for you upstairs, I nodded, mustering my most confident expression. Thank you, I'm ready. As I made my way to the elevators, my phone vibrated in my purse, probably Haley checking in from school. I pulled it out to check the caller ID, and my heart skipped a beat. It was Haley's number, but much too early for her to be out already. Mom, please come home. I heard everything. Haley's small voice trembled through the speaker, laced with fear. What do you mean, sweetie? What happened? It's Keith. He hurt me. I heard him talking about something bad. The world around me seemed to freeze as the weight of her words sank in. Keith, my charismatic boyfriend of 6 months, had always been so warm and caring towards Haley, but the terror in her voice was unmistakable. Haley, I'm on my way right now, I said, my voice shaking. Stay hidden and don't let Keith see you, okay? Without a second thought, I bolted out of the building, the governor's interview forgotten. My mind raced as I jumped into my car, scenarios of what could have happened flashing through my mind. How could I have been so blind? Keith had seemed like the perfect guy, kind, successful, even getting along well with my ex-husband Peter for Haley's sake. But now, my little girl's words echoed in my ears, a sickening pit forming in my stomach. I had to get to her, and fast. I burst through the front door of our modest suburban home, my heart pounding. Haley? Haley, where are you? A small figure emerged from the hallway closet, tears streaming down her face. Haley ran into my arms, trembling. Mommy, I was so scared. I held her tight, stroking her hair. It's okay, baby. I'm here now. What happened? Haley sniffled, her little hands clutching my blouse. Keith came home early from work. Spat. He was yelling on the phone about some money problems. Then he started throwing things around the living room. A chill ran down my spine. In all our months together, I had never seen that side of Keith. I tried to stay quiet in my room, Haley continued. But then he came in and grabbed my arm really hard. She rolled up her sleeve, revealing angry red marks. White-hot fury coursed through me at the sight of those marks on my baby's delicate skin. How could he lay a hand on her? Haley, I'm so sorry, I whispered fiercely, holding her close. This will never happen again, I promise. The front door opened and Keith walked in, his expression changing from confusion to feigned concern when he saw us huddled together. Jenna? What's going on? I met his gaze with steel in my eyes. How dare you put your hands on my daughter? Keith's face contorted in mock bewilderment. What are you talking about? Haley must be making things up again for attention. He knelt down, his voice taking on that sickly, sweet tone he used to manipulate. Isn't that right, princess? You know I'd never hurt you." Haley shrank back against me, her eyes wide with fear. In that moment, I knew her terror was real, and the man I thought I knew was a monster. "Get out," I snarled at Keith. "Get out of my house and don't ever come near us again." His expression darkened, the mask slipping. "You'll regret this, Jenna. I can make your life hell." Before I could respond, the front door opened again, and Keith's 16-year-old son Ethan walked in, his headphones on and oblivious to the confrontation. "What's going on?" he asked flatly, taking in the scene. Keith straightened, his charming smile returning like a light switch. "Nothing, son, just a little misunderstanding. Why don't you go on up to your room?" Ethan shrugged and disappeared down the hallway. I watched him go, a sinking feeling in my gut. If Keith could put on such a convincing act for his own child, what else was he capable of hiding? "This isn't over," Keith hissed, grabbing his coat. "You're going to be sorry you crossed me." With that, he stormed out, slamming the door behind him hard enough to rattle the windows. I held Haley close, my mind whirling. What had I gotten us into? And how could I protect my little girl from the storm I sensed was coming? After Keith's explosive confrontation, I knew I needed backup to protect Haley and myself. I texted my ex-husband Peter, knowing he would drop everything for our daughter's safety. Within the hour, he was at my doorstep, his face etched with concern. "Jenna? What's going on? Are you two okay?" I quickly recounted the incident with Keith as Haley clung to my side, her eyes still red from crying. Peter's expression darkened with barely contained fury. "That son of a bitch laid his hands on my little girl?" His fists clenched. "I'll kill him." "Pete, please." I put a hand on his arm, trying to calm him. As much as I understood his anger, violence wouldn't solve anything. We need to handle this carefully for Haley's sake. He took a deep breath, nodding reluctantly. Peter had always been protective of us, even after our divorce 2 years ago. I was grateful he was still in our lives. The next morning, I headed into work with Haley by my side, determined to investigate Keith's background more thoroughly. I pulled my tech-savvy colleague Tony aside. "Tony, I need your help digging into someone's digital footprint," I said in a low voice. "It's sensitive." Tony's eyes widened behind his thick glasses, but he simply nodded. "Say no more. Bring me what you've got, and I'll get to work." Back at my desk, I pulled up every scrap of information I had on Keith. Emails, phone records, social media profiles, anything that could provide a window into the truth behind his carefully crafted persona. As I compiled the files, movement at my periphery caught my eye. I glanced up to see Haley standing beside my desk, clutching her well-worn stuffed bunny. "Mommy, when is Keith coming back?" she asked in a small voice. My heart clenched at her innocent question. I got up and knelt in front of her, taking her little hands in mine. "Baby Keith, he's not a good man. You were right to be scared of him." I struggled to find the right words, my protective instincts raging. "He won't be coming back, ever. I won't let him hurt you again." Haley's lower lip trembled, but she nodded bravely. In that moment, I silently vowed to do whatever it took to keep this little girl safe from harm. Later that evening, Tony came to my apartment with a grim expression. "Jenna, you were right to be suspicious of this Keith guy." He pulled out a stack of printed documents, phone records, bank statements, even court filings from other states. I did some deep digging, and it's not pretty. Tony laid out a trail of evidence, a history of debt and unpaid loans, allegations of fraud and intimidation from ex-business partners. It painted a picture of a manipulative, vindictive man constantly chasing money through shady schemes. "There's more," Tony continued grimly. "I found 2 ex-wives who filed restraining orders claiming emotional and financial abuse. One of them, she dropped off the grid about 5 years ago." A chill shot down my spine. Had Keith's twisted games gone even further than we realized? I thought of Haley's terrified face, and my blood boiled. "We need to take this to the police," I stated, my voice hardening with resolve. "And we need an ironclad case to put this bastard away for good." Tony and I exchanged a determined look. For my little girl's sake, I would burn Keith's life to the ground and salt the earth. He had inexcusably threatened the most precious thing in my world, and he was going to pay. Over the next few days, I tried to maintain a sense of normalcy for Haley's sake while Tony and I continued digging into Keith's past. The more we uncovered, the sicker I felt. Unpaid debts, allegations of fraud, and a string of scorned exes in his wake. Just how deep did this man's depravity run? One evening, there was a heavy knock at the door. I tensed, pulling Haley closer to me on the couch before getting up to answer it. To my surprise, it was Keith standing on the doorstep, an unsettling smile plastered on his face. "Hello, Jenna. Aren't you going to invite me in?" His voice was sickly sweet, but I could see the cold threat simmering in his eyes. "You're not welcome here," I stated firmly, trying to keep my voice steady. "I want you to stay away from me and my daughter." Keith's expression hardened. "That's no way to speak to your boyfriend, Jenna, after all we've been through together?" He took a step forward, and I instinctively moved to block him from entering. "We're through, Keith. I know what kind of man you really are." I couldn't keep the disgust from my voice. The lies, the manipulation, threatening a child, it's sick. A muscle twitched in his jaw, but that eerie smile didn't waver. "You don't know what you're talking about, babe. Haley's just a troubled little girl looking for attention. Maybe I was a little rough with her, but she had it coming, disobeying me like that." White-hot fury lanced through me at his casual dismissal of abusing my daughter. I clenched my fists, fighting the urge to lash out physically. "Get off my property before I call the police, you psychopath." Keith's gaze flicked over my shoulder, catching sight of Haley peeking around the corner. His smile widened, sending a chill down my spine. "You'll regret this, Jenna. You have no idea what I'm capable of." With that ominous warning, he turned and strode back to his car, leaving me shaken. I quickly shut and locked the door, pulling Haley into a fierce hug. "It's okay, baby. He's not going to hurt you again, I promise." My words sounded hollow even to my own ears. If Keith was willing to threaten a child, what other depraved acts was he capable of to regain control? The next morning, I arrived at work to find Tony waiting anxiously at my desk. "Jenna, you'd better see this." He pulled up a series of images, screenshots of disturbing internet searches from Keith's laptop. Things no sane person should ever be looking for, much less the man dating a single mother. My stomach turned. "There's more," Tony said grimly. "I accessed the cloud backup for your home computer and, well, see for yourself." With a few keystrokes, he pulled up a video feed from inside my living room, a hidden camera I never knew existed. I felt violated all over again, watching mundane family moments playing out, all secretly recorded by that monster. "We have to go to the police now," I stated, feeling numb. "With this evidence, they can put him away for a long time." Tony nodded in solemn agreement, but something nagged at the back of my mind. If Keith was this unhinged and desperate, what other surprises might he have in store for the people trying to take him down? I made a call to Peter, knowing we'd need all the backup we could get. There was no going back now. For Haley's safety, I had to dismantle Keith's life, piece by sickening piece. With the damning evidence Tony uncovered, we knew we had to act fast before Keith could make his next move. Peter agreed to take Haley somewhere safe while Tony and I solidified our case against that monster. "Are you sure about this, Jenna?" Peter asked, concern etched on his face as he held our daughter's hand. "This guy seems capable of anything. I don't want you putting yourself in danger." "I have to do this, Pete," I stated firmly, "for Haley's sake. Keith needs to go away for a long, long time where he can't hurt anyone else." Peter nodded reluctantly. "Just be careful, and call me the second you need backup, you hear?" After they left, Tony and I got to work compiling every shred of proof we had. Bank records, court filings, the recordings from the hidden camera. It was a dizzying array of manipulation and deceit. "Wait, there's more," Tony said, his eyes widening at his computer screen. "I think I found something big." He turned the monitor to show me a series of money transfers to an offshore account I'd never seen before. And not just any money. These amounts were huge, in the millions. "What the hell is this?" I breathed. "Where is Keith getting this kind of cash?" Tony shook his head grimly. "I don't know, but it can't be legal." "And look at this." He scrolled through more documents, fake IDs, fraudulent passports, all under different aliases linked to those shady transactions. A sickening realization began to dawn on me. "You think he's been running some kind of long con, scamming and manipulating innocent people out of their life savings?" The pieces were starting to fall into place. Keith's constantly shifting business ventures, the trail of embittered exes. his quick attachment to me and Haley despite his shady past. He'd simply been looking for his next big score, and I'd let him get dangerously close to my family. "We need to take this to the authorities right away," I stated, feeling numb, "before he gets tipped off and tries to run." Tony nodded grimly. "I'll make some calls. We're going to bury this bastard." I forced myself to stay focused over the next few hours as we marshaled our evidence and contacted the police, but my mind kept drifting to Keith's earlier threat, his cold eyes boring into me. What else was he capable of to protect his con? A sudden knock at the apartment door made me jump. I tensed, reaching slowly for the baseball bat I now kept within reach at all times. "Who is it?" "It's me, Ethan. Keith's son." The teenage boy's muffled voice came through the door. I need to talk to you about my dad." My blood ran cold. Had Keith sent his own child here to threaten me, or worse? I gripped the bat tighter as I cracked open the door a few inches. Ethan looked past me into the apartment, his expression unreadable. "I know what my dad's really been up to. The lies, the money. I want to help you take him down." I searched his face for any hint of deception, but his steely gaze seemed sincere, if haunted. Slowly, I opened the door the rest of the way. "Tell me everything," I said grimly. If Ethan was truly on our side, he could be the key to finally destroying Keith's web of schemes once and for all. For Haley's sake, and every other innocent life that monster had shattered, I would make sure Keith paid the ultimate price. No mercy, no half measures. It was time to end this. With Ethan's help, the pieces finally fell into place. The kid may have been aloof, but he wasn't blind to his father's twisted games. Turns out Ethan had been collecting evidence against Keith for years, secret recordings, financial documents, you name it. "I always knew there was something off about him," Ethan explained, running a hand through his shaggy hair. "The constant moving, the shady business deals, the way he treated women like they were disposable. I just didn't know how far it really went until recently." Tony and I exchanged a grim look as we pored over Ethan's trove of damning evidence. It was a dizzying paper trail of fraud, emotional abuse, and ruined lives in Keith's wake. "We have to take this public," I stated, feeling that familiar fire burning in my chest. "Expose every last one of his sins to the world so he can never hurt anyone again." "Are you sure that's wise?" Ethan asked hesitantly. "My dad, he's capable of anything when he's backed into a corner. If he gets tipped off, he could run, or worse." I thought of Haley's terrified face that day, the marks on her little arm from Keith's vicious grip. No, I was done playing his twisted game by his rules. "Your father's reign of terror ends now," I said, my voice hardening. "We're going to take him down in a big way, live for the whole world to see. No more hiding in the shadows." With grim determination, we got to work. First order of business, find out where Keith's next big public appearance would be. The slime ball never missed a chance to preen for the cameras. Sure enough, Tony discovered Keith was headlining some big corporate event in a few days' time, rubbing elbows with local bigwigs and politicians. Perfect. Next, we looped in some other key players, Peter to help keep Haley safe and secure, and Linda, one of Keith's ex-wives who had barely escaped his clutches with her life years ago. She was more than eager to help bring him down once and for all. "I'll be there with everything I have on that monster," she stated grimly over the phone. It's long past time he faced real consequences. Finally, the big day arrived. I could feel the adrenaline thrumming through my veins as we got into position at the convention center where Keith's event was happening. Peter and Haley were safely tucked away, but I knew my little girl was watching over the live stream we had set up. Keith took the stage, all false bravado and that trademark smarmy grin, utterly oblivious to the reckoning that was coming. I caught Ethan's eye across the room and gave him a nod. Let the fireworks begin. With a few keystrokes, Tony hijacked the big screens flanking the stage. Suddenly, Keith's smiling face was replaced by images and footage documenting his endless trail of sins. The fraud, the abuse, the conning of innocent victims out of their life savings. I watched the color drain from his face as he realized what was happening. No, you can't do this. But it was too late. Linda was already striding towards the stage, her face contorted with years of pent-up fury. "Hello, Keith?" she spat venomously. "Remember me?" As he sputtered and backpedaled, more damning evidence filled the screens. Transcripts, audio recordings, all of it leading back to him. There was no wiggle room, no escape hatch this time. I stood tall, staring Keith down as security finally moved in to subdue his thrashing form. "This is for my daughter, you sick son of a bitch," I called out, loud enough for the cameras to catch. "Your reign of terror is over." Keith met my gaze then, and I saw the mask finally crack, revealing the depraved, soulless monster beneath. But I didn't flinch. I was done being afraid. As they dragged him away, I felt something loosen in my chest. A weight finally lifted after all these months of living in fear. My little girl was safe, and that twisted bastard would never be able to hurt another innocent life again. The days after our explosive exposé of Keith's crimes were a whirlwind. Giving statements to the police, fielding a frenzy of media inquiries, and trying to shield Haley from the spotlight as much as possible. But through it all, I felt an immense sense of relief and vindication. That monster was finally behind bars where he could never hurt another innocent family again. Peter had been an absolute rock, keeping Haley occupied and reassuring her that the nightmare was over. I don't know what I would have done without his steady presence. "You did it, Jenna," he said simply one evening as we watched Haley playing in the living room, mercifully oblivious to the weight we had all carried. "You saved her." I managed a weary smile, suddenly feeling the full extent of the emotional trauma. "We saved her, Pete. If you hadn't been there for us." He gave my hand a comforting squeeze, and I felt a pang of regret that things hadn't worked out between us as a couple. Peter was a good man, a great father, but I had been too obsessed with my career to make our marriage a priority when it mattered most. At least now, in the aftermath of this chaos, we could be united as co-parents for Haley's well-being. A firm knock at the door pulled me from my reverie. I tensed automatically. Too many months of living on edge, I supposed. But when I pulled it open, I saw Ethan's familiar, brooding expression. "Hey!" He shuffled awkwardly on the doorstep. "I wanted to check in, see how you guys were doing." I studied Keith's son carefully. He had been through his own private hell, witnessing his father's depravity up close over the years. But in the end, Ethan had chosen the moral path, despite the risks. "We're coping," I replied honestly. "It's going to take some time to feel really safe again, you know?" Ethan nodded, looking pained. "Yeah, I get that." He drew a deep, shuddering breath. "Look, I know I can't make up for the shit my dad put you through, but if you'll let me, I want to be here, you know? For Haley and—" He trailed off, his jaw tightening. In that moment, I saw it, the longing for some semblance of family, of stability, underneath his prickly exterior. This poor kid had been starved of that his whole life, thanks to his father's toxicity. On impulse, I reached out and pulled Ethan into a fierce hug. He stiffened at first, then melted into the embrace with a quiet sigh. "You're a part of this family now, kiddo," I murmured fiercely. "We'll get through this together." There would still be plenty of hard days ahead, to be sure, wounds to mend, trust to rebuild. But in that moment, I felt a sense of hope and determination well up in my chest. We had taken down the biggest demon of all. Whatever other battles awaited, we would face them head-on, unafraid, our little family of survivors bound by our scars yet standing tall. When I finally released Ethan, I saw the glimmer of tears in his eyes, but he quickly blinked them away with a gruff nod. That was okay. We had all the time in the world now to learn how to heal and find our strength together. "Come on in," I said with a soft smile, gesturing inside. "There's someone who's going to be real happy to see her new big brother." As Haley came bounding over, her face lighting up at the sight of Ethan, I knew we were going to be all right. The nightmare was over. A new chapter was just beginning. In the weeks after Keith's dramatic downfall, life slowly began to return to normal, or at least some semblance of it. The nonstop media frenzy died down, the police wrapped up their investigation, and that sick, twisted chapter was finally closed. Of course, the emotional scars would take much longer to heal. I could see it in Haley's eyes sometimes when she thought I wasn't looking, that flicker of residual fear and uncertainty. My poor baby had her innocence shattered at such a tender age. But she was a resilient little fighter, my girl. With me, Peter, and even Ethan rallying around her, she found her sunshine again, bit by bit. Ethan, I'll admit, I had my doubts about him sticking around at first. The kid had been through his own private trauma thanks to his scumbag father. Who could blame him if he wanted to just cut and run from this ugly chapter? Instead, he stunned me by digging his heels in, determined to build a real relationship with Haley and be the supportive big brother figure she needed. They grew inseparable those first few months, playing endless rounds of make-believe and watching corny movies together. I'll never forget the night I caught them giggling secretly in the living room, Ethan's face unguardedly joyful as Haley smeared makeup all over his cheeks. Just a couple of silly kids being kids, without a care in the world. In that moment, my heart swelled with overwhelming gratitude that we had each other to lean on through the darkness. Of course, Peter was instrumental as well, my eternally patient ex-husband and co-parent. I lost count of how many times he dropped everything to rush over, whether it was fielding a night terror from Haley or just giving me a shoulder to cry on. "You don't have to thank me, Jen," he said simply one evening as we sat on the porch enjoying the tranquility. "I'll always be here for you two. That's never going to change." I felt a pang of wistfulness, thinking of what might have been if I had prioritized my little family over my all-consuming career years ago. Peter was a good man, a good father, maybe in another life, but I pushed those thoughts aside, giving him a grateful smile. "I know, and that means everything, Pete. Really." As the summer days stretched on peacefully, I found myself slowly shedding the weight of fear and hypervigilance I'd carried for so long. The smiles came more easily, the laughter rang out more freely in our humble little home. One evening, I was putting Haley to bed when she stopped me shyly. "Mommy, can I give this to Ethan, to say thank you for being so nice?" She was clutching one of her prized possessions, a delicate wind chime made of bright seashells that Peter had brought back from a vacation years ago. Despite her young age, Haley understood the significance of such a gesture. I felt a lump form in my throat as I stroked her soft hair. "Of course you can, baby. I'm sure he'll love it." As I left her bedroom, I could see Ethan lingering in the hallway, his brooding expression softening just a touch as he watched his new little sister drift off to sleep. In that moment, I knew we had finally formed our own little family, a bit unconventional, a bit scarred, but bound by cords tougher than blood, loyal, protective, and absolutely unbreakable against any storm. I caught Ethan's eye and smiled, feeling a profound sense of peace wash over me. The nightmare was finally over. All that remained was the warm, brilliant promise of new horizons ahead. As I drifted off to sleep that night, the gentle chiming of Haley's gift to Ethan echoed faintly, like a lullaby ushering in hopeful dreams. Our future was wide open, the possibilities endless, and we would face it together, steadfast survivors all. I stared at the innocuous brown package on my kitchen counter, feeling a sinking sensation in my gut. Another one. The third this week, all containing random items I never ordered or wanted. A set of cheap steak knives, a floral silk scarf, and now a garish ceramic vase. My heartbeat quickened as I scanned the plain wrapping for any clues, but just like the others, there was no return address or identifying information. "What's going on?" I muttered under my breath, running a hand through my graying hair. A strange, gnawing feeling told me this was no mere mix-up at the mail depot. The sound of the doorbell jolted me from my thoughts. I peered through the peephole to see the familiar face of my niece, Cora, smiling back at me. A wave of relief washed over me as I ushered her inside. "Aunt Sage, you look spooked," Cora remarked, her brow furrowed with concern. "What's wrong?" Without hesitation, I recounted the bizarre series of mystery packages, laying out the contents on the kitchen island. Cora's eyes widened as she examined each item, her fingers tracing over the intricate patterns on the vase. "This is really weird," she murmured. "Have you tried calling the companies or tracking the shipments?" I nodded, feeling a lump form in my throat. "That's the thing. There are no order numbers, no invoices, nothing. It's like these packages just materialized out of thin air." Cora's expression hardened, her jaw set in determination. "We need to get to the bottom of this. Maybe we should install some security cameras around the house, just in case." Her suggestion ignited a spark of unease within me. Could someone be targeting me? But who and why? Flashes of old family tensions flickered through my mind, but I quickly brushed them aside. Surely it couldn't be related to those ancient grudges. "You're right," I finally agreed. stealing my resolve. Let's get those cameras set up. If someone is behind this, we'll catch them red-handed. As we worked together to mount the cameras, a sense of unease lingered. But deep down, I knew I had to unravel this mystery, no matter where it led. After all, I was Sage Allen, retired teacher, community leader, and no stranger to facing challenges head-on. Whatever storm was brewing, I would weather it with the same resilience that had carried me through life's ups and downs. Over the next few days, Cora and I meticulously installed the security cameras, positioning them to cover every potential entry point around my modest home. The uneasy knot in my stomach refused to dissipate, and Cora's presence provided little comfort as we pored over the footage, searching for any suspicious activity. That's when we saw him, a figure lurking in the shadows, his face partially obscured by the darkness. But there was no mistaking that familiar gait, the slight hunch of his shoulders that I'd recognize anywhere. "Frederick," I breathed, my fingers tightening around the computer mouse as if it were a lifeline. Cora's eyes widened. "You mean your cousin? The one who's been in and out of trouble ever since we were kids?" I nodded grimly, memories of Frederick's past misdeeds flooding back. Petty theft, fraud, even a stint in jail. He'd always been a black sheep in our family, constantly seeking shortcuts and exploiting loopholes for his own gain. But why now? I wondered aloud. What could he possibly want from me after all these years? Cora's brow furrowed as she zoomed in on the grainy footage, studying Frederick's furtive movements. "Well, whatever it is, it can't be good. We need to be careful, Aunt Sage." A shiver ran down my spine at the stern tone in her voice. Cora had always been level-headed, but there was a newfound severity in her demeanor that unsettled me. Over the next few days, the packages kept arriving, each more bizarre and unsettling than the last. A set of expensive crystal wine glasses, a designer handbag still wrapped in plastic, even a sleek laptop that must have cost a small fortune. With each delivery, my unease grew, and I found myself jumping at every creak and shadow. It was during one of our nightly stakeouts that Cora made a startling discovery. "Look at this," she said, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she pulled up a news article from a neighboring town. There have been reports of similar incidents, people receiving random high-value packages they never ordered. My heart sank as I scanned the article, recognizing the all-too-familiar pattern. "You don't think?" Cora's expression was grim. "Frederick's name is all over this. It looks like he's been running some sort of twisted scam, sending people valuable goods, and then trying to extort money from them." Rage bubbled within me, hot and visceral. How dare he drag our family name through the mud once again with his selfish, criminal antics? But beneath the anger, a sliver of fear took root. If Frederick was truly behind this, what lengths would he go to in his pursuit of ill-gotten gains? "We need to stop him," I declared, my voice trembling with resolve. "Whatever it takes, we can't let him get away with this." Cora nodded, her eyes gleaming with determination. "Don't worry, Aunt Sage. We'll bring that scumbag down, even if we have to catch him in the act ourselves." As we began plotting our next move, a sense of grim purpose settled over us. Frederick had crossed a line, and he would soon learn that messing with Sage Allen was a grave mistake, one he wouldn't soon forget. In the days that followed, Cora's online digging unveiled a troubling pattern. Frederick's name cropped up time and again, linked to similar schemes across multiple states. Packages filled with random, high-value items would arrive at unsuspecting victims' doorsteps, only for Frederick to surface later, demanding payment under the guise of settling bogus debts. The sheer audacity of his con left me reeling. How could he stoop so low? I muttered, pinching the bridge of my nose as the evidence mounted on Cora's laptop screen. I knew he was troubled, but this is a whole new level of depravity. Cora's expression hardened, her jaw set in a tight line. Clearly, he's spiraling out of control. We need to put a stop to this before someone really gets hurt. Her words struck a chord deep within me, dredging up memories I'd long tried to bury. Frederick's descent into petty crime and shady dealings had been a source of constant tension within our family, driving an irreparable wedge between his parents and the rest of us. I could still hear the echoes of heated arguments, accusations hurled back and forth like daggers. "He's just a kid, Sage. Boys will be boys," my aunt would plead, her eyes desperate for understanding. but my mother's gaze would remain steely, unwavering. "That kid is a menace. Mark my words, he'll bring nothing but trouble to this family." At the time, I had dismissed their words as mere hyperbole, the overblown ramblings of adults caught up in their own drama. But now, faced with the undeniable evidence of Frederick's misdeeds, I couldn't help but wonder if those long-buried enmities had finally taken root, blossoming into something far more sinister. "Why now, Frederick?" I found myself whispering, my fingers tracing the faded pages of an old family photo album. "What do you want from me after all these years?" Beside me, Cora's fingers flew across the keyboard, her brow furrowed in concentration. "I think I might have found our answer," she murmured, her voice laced with a mixture of disgust and triumph. On the screen, a news article flashed, a mugshot of Frederick, his expression defiant even as the headline blared details of his latest arrest. Fraud, embezzlement, racketeering. The charges were staggering, painting a portrait of a man drowning in a sea of debt and desperation. "He's broke," Cora surmised, her eyes meeting mine with grim understanding. "And you know what they say about people with nothing left to lose." A chill ran down my spine as the pieces fell into place. Frederick's sudden resurgence in our lives, the escalating packages, the brazen attempts at extortion, it all led back to one inescapable conclusion. He was targeting me, his own flesh and blood, in a last-ditch effort to claw his way out of the pit he'd dug for himself. As the realization washed over me, a wave of steely resolve rose within my chest. This was no longer just about packages or petty scams. This was a battle for the soul of our family, a reckoning long overdue. And Frederick was about to learn that karma had finally come calling, with a vengeance. The packages kept coming, each one more extravagant and valuable than the last. A gorgeous diamond tennis bracelet, a top-of-the-line laptop, even a sleek virtual reality gaming system, still sealed in its box. With every delivery, my sense of unease grew, morphing into a simmering rage that threatened to boil over. It was during one of our nightly vigils, poring over the security footage, that Cora's phone trilled with an incoming call. She shot me an apologetic glance before answering, her expression quickly shifting to one of concern. "Theo, what's going on?" she asked, her brow furrowing as the voice on the other end crackled through the speaker. Theo was an old family friend, a veteran cop who had always looked out for us. If he was calling at this hour, it couldn't be good news. Slow down," Cora urged, waving me over to listen in. "You're saying you found something on Frederick?" My heart lurched at the sound of his name, and I leaned in closer, straining to catch Theo's words through the tinny speaker. "Deep in debt, over his head with some real nasty characters," Theo's gruff voice echoed. "Looks like he might be trying to pull off some kind of scam, targeting someone close to him for a big score." Cora's eyes met mine, a silent understanding passing between us. Of course, it all made sense now. Frederick's desperate financial situation, his sudden reappearance in our lives, the escalating packages. It was all part of an elaborate scheme to bilk me out of every penny I had. "That low-life son of a—" I muttered, my fists clenching involuntarily. The sheer audacity of his plan, the betrayal of targeting his own family, ignited a fury within me unlike anything I'd ever felt before. Cora placed a gentle hand on my arm, her touch grounding me in the moment. "Thanks for the heads up, Theo," she said into the phone, her voice steely with determination. "We'll handle it from here." As she ended the call, a weighted silence hung between us, thick with unspoken tension. Finally, Cora broke the stillness, her words slicing through the air like a knife. "We have to stop him, Aunt Sage, no matter what it takes." I nodded, my jaw set in a grim line. "Absolutely. That snake has gone too far this time." A plan began to take shape in my mind, a daring gambit that would force Frederick to show his true colors once and for all. But to pull it off, we'd need help. Someone with insider knowledge, someone Frederick would never suspect. "Call your cousin Blake," I instructed Cora, my voice leaving no room for argument. It's time we brought the rest of the family into this. As Cora dialed the number, I felt a surge of grim satisfaction coursing through my veins. Frederick had made a grave mistake in underestimating me, in thinking he could slither his way back into our lives and bleed us dry without consequence. This time, there would be no more second chances, no more empty promises of reform. This time, justice would be served, and Frederick would finally answer for his litany of sins against our family. The annual Allen family reunion was always a boisterous affair, a chance for distant relatives to gather and catch up over heaping plates of Mom's famous potato salad. But this year the cheerful banter and laughter felt forced, a thin veil barely concealing the undercurrent of tension that crackled through the air. As I scanned the crowded backyard, my gaze landed on Frederick, holding court in the corner with a small cluster of cousins. His booming laugh grated against my nerves, and I felt my hands ball into fists at my sides. This couldn't go on any longer. Exchanging a meaningful glance with Cora, I steeled my resolve and began weaving through the throngs of people, making a beeline for Frederick's little coterie. As I drew closer, his eyes met mine, and for a fleeting moment, I saw a flicker of unease cross his features before his trademark smirk snapped back into place. Well, if it isn't my dear cousin Sage, he drawled, raising his beer in a mock toast. To what do we owe the pleasure? I felt the eyes of the others upon me, their gazes curious, expectant. This was it, the moment of truth. Cut the crap, Frederick, I spat, my voice low and dangerous. We know what you've been up to with those packages. A hush fell over the group as Frederick's smirk faltered, his bravado slipping for the briefest of moments. But just as quickly, he regained his composure, letting out a dismissive chuckle. Packages? What are you on about, Sage? You're starting to sound a bit paranoid in your old age. The jeers and snickers from his little entourage only fueled my anger, and I felt my pulse quicken as I stepped closer, invading his personal space. Don't play dumb with me, I snarled, jabbing a finger into his chest. We have evidence, video footage of you sneaking around my property, the paper trail linking you to similar scams across the country. It's all there, clear as day. Frederick's eyes widened, and for a moment I thought I saw a glimmer of panic flit across his features. But just as quickly, he schooled his expression into one of feigned indignation. These are serious accusations, Sage, he scoffed, puffing out his chest in a show of bravado. You'd better have some solid proof before slandering my good name like this. A tense silence hung in the air, thick and suffocating. This was the moment, the chance to back down, to defuse the situation and walk away. But as I met Frederick's defiant glare, something inside me snapped. You're right, I growled, my voice dripping with venom. I do have proof, and I'm going to make sure the whole family sees it. With that, I whirled around and stormed away, leaving a stunned Frederick in my wake. As I marched back towards the house, Cora fell into step beside me, her expression a mix of concern and admiration. That was intense, she murmured, her eyes wide. Are you sure you want to do this, Aunt Sage? There's no going back after this. I didn't hesitate, my mind made up. Absolutely. It's time for Frederick to face the consequences of his actions once and for all. As we made our way inside, I could feel the weight of 1,000 eyes boring into my back. But I didn't care. This was about more than just packages or petty scams. This was about justice, about reclaiming our family's dignity from the clutches of a man who had squandered it for far too long. And as I dialed Theo's number, I knew that the reckoning had finally arrived. The next few days were a flurry of activity as Cora, Theo, and I put the final pieces of our plan into motion. We knew Frederick would be monitoring the situation closely, waiting for his next opportunity to strike. And that's precisely what we were counting on. Are you sure you want to go through with this, Sage? Theo asked, his brow furrowed with concern as he triple-checked the hidden cameras we'd planted around my property. This guy seems like bad news. I don't want you getting caught in the crossfire. I met his gaze, my jaw set in determination. I'm sure, Theo, it's time we put an end to Frederick's games once and for all. Cora stepped forward, her expression mirroring my own resolute demeanor. We've got your back, Aunt Sage. This scumbag isn't going to know what hit him. With a sharp nod, Theo signaled that everything was in place. All right then, let's get this show on the road. The bait was simple, another high-value package, this time containing a sleek, top-of-the-line drone with all the bells and whistles. We knew Frederick wouldn't be able to resist such a tempting prize, and sure enough, within hours of the delivery, the security feeds crackled to life. There he was, skulking around the periphery of my property, his eyes darting back and forth like a cornered animal. My heart pounded in my chest as I watched him inch closer, his movements furtive and calculated. He's going for it, Cora whispered, her fingers tightening around the edge of the laptop screen. We held our breath as Frederick crept up to the front porch, snatching the package with a greedy swiftness before retreating back into the shadows. But this time, he wasn't getting away so easily. That's our cue, Theo growled, his hand already reaching for his radio. Let's move in. In a blur of motion, we sprang into action, Theo's team of officers converging on my property from all sides. Frederick's eyes went wide as the net closed in around him, and for a moment I almost felt a twinge of pity at the sheer terror etched across his features. Almost. Frederick Allen, you're under arrest for fraud, extortion, and a whole host of other charges, Theo barked, his tone leaving no room for negotiation as he slapped the cuffs around Frederick's wrists. You have the right to remain silent, but Frederick wasn't going down without a fight. As the officers hauled him towards the waiting squad car, he craned his neck in my direction, his eyes burning with a poisonous mixture of rage and desperation. You think this is over, Sage? He spat, his words laced with venom. You have no idea what you've just stepped into. This is just the beginning. A shiver ran down my spine at the implicit threat in his voice, but I refused to show any outward sign of fear. Not now, not after everything we'd been through to get to this point. Save it for the judge, Frederick, I countered, my voice steady and unwavering. Your reign of terror is over. As the squad car peeled away, leaving a cloud of dust in its wake, I felt a strange sense of relief wash over me. The weight of Frederick's looming presence, the constant anxiety and uncertainty, had finally been lifted from my shoulders. But even as I basked in the momentary triumph, a nagging voice in the back of my mind reminded me that this was far from over. Frederick's parting words echoed like a sinister promise, a harbinger of storms yet to come. Cora must have sensed my unease because she stepped forward, wrapping her arms around me in a fierce embrace. Don't worry, Aunt Sage, she murmured, her voice thick with conviction. We've got this. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. And in that moment, surrounded by the unwavering support of my family, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would emerge victorious. Because when it came to defending our loved ones, there was no force on earth that could stand in our way. The atmosphere at the Allen family reunion was electric, charged with a palpable tension that crackled through the air like static electricity. As I scanned the crowd gathered in my backyard, I could see the whispers, the furtive glances in my direction. Everyone was buzzing about the events of the past week. Frederick's dramatic arrest the topic on everyone's lips. Part of me felt a twinge of guilt at the prospect of airing our dirty laundry in such a public forum. But the other, larger part of me knew that this was a reckoning long overdue, a chance to finally expose Frederick's misdeeds and hold him accountable for the pain and chaos he'd sown within our family. Cora must have sensed my inner turmoil because she leaned in close, her voice low and reassuring. You ready for this, Aunt Sage? I took a deep breath, steeling my resolve, and gave her a curt nod. More than ready. It's time we put an end to this once and for all. With that, I stepped forward, my movements commanding the attention of the assembled crowd. A hush fell over the gathering as all eyes turned towards me, a heady mixture of curiosity and apprehension hanging thick in the air. Family, I began, my voice ringing out clear and strong. I know you're all wondering why I've called this little impromptu get-together today. The truth is, there's something that needs to be addressed, a cancer that has been festering within our ranks for far too long. A ripple of murmurs swept through the crowd, but I pressed on, undeterred. For years we've turned a blind eye to the actions of one person, a man who has shown time and again that he has no regard for the sanctity of our family or for the values we hold dear. I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. I'm talking, of course, about Frederick. At the mention of his name, a palpable shift occurred, as if a collective gasp had been sucked from the lungs of every person present. Frederick's supporters shifted uncomfortably, their gazes darting back and forth while others leaned forward, rapt with attention. Some of you may have heard whispers about his recent activities, I continued, my voice hardening. The packages, the scams, the outright extortion attempts. Well, I'm here to tell you that it's all true, and we have the evidence to prove it. With a sharp nod to Cora, she queued up the video footage we'd compiled, the large screen behind me flickering to life with grainy images of Frederick skulking around my property, his movements furtive and guilt-ridden. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd as the damning footage played out, each frame more incriminating than the last. And then, the pièce de résistance, the video of Frederick's arrest, his snarling face contorted with rage as the cuffs clicked around his wrists. As the footage concluded, a heavy silence hung in the air, thick and oppressive. All eyes were on me, 1,000 unspoken questions burning in their gazes. Finally, a voice broke through the stillness, trembling with barely contained emotion. "Is it true?" Frederick's mother croaked, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Did you really do all those terrible things, son?" For a long moment, Frederick said nothing, his gaze fixed on the ground, his shoulders slumped in defeat. But then, almost imperceptibly, he nodded, a barely perceptible dip of his chin that spoke volumes. I didn't have a choice," he muttered, his voice tinged with a mixture of defiance and shame. "I was drowning, backed into a corner. Sage was the only one who could help me out of this mess." A chorus of gasps and outraged cries erupted from the crowd, but I remained stoic, letting the damning truth of his words hang in the air like a noxious cloud. As Frederick was led away, his footsteps echoing hollowly across the yard, I felt a profound sense of relief wash over me. The cancer had been excised, the festering wound finally lanced and drained. But even as I basked in the momentary triumph, I knew that our work was far from over. This was just the first step in a long journey, a journey to heal the rifts that had been torn open within our family, to rebuild the bonds of trust and kinship that Frederick had so callously shattered. And as I looked out over the sea of faces, their expressions a kaleidoscope of emotions ranging from shock to anger to grim determination, I knew that we would emerge from this trial stronger than ever before. Because at the end of the day, we were Allens. And no matter what storms raged around us, our family would weather them together, united and unbreakable. The weeks following Frederick's arrest were a whirlwind of activity. With his confession and the damning evidence we'd gathered, the case against him was airtight. He was slapped with a laundry list of charges: fraud, extortion, racketeering, you name it. As the full extent of his crimes came to light, the family was left reeling, struggling to come to terms with the depths of his betrayal. But through it all, I remained steadfast, channeling my energy into something positive, a mission to ensure that no one in our community would ever have to endure the kind of trauma and turmoil that Frederick had inflicted upon us. It started small, with a few neighborhood watch meetings and workshops on recognizing the signs of elder abuse and financial exploitation. But as word spread of our efforts, the momentum grew, drawing in more and more volunteers eager to lend their voices and their time to the cause. "You know, when all this went down, I was really worried about how it would impact the community," Theo admitted one evening as we strategized over cups of lukewarm coffee. "But look at what you've managed to build here, Sage. It's incredible." I shook my head, a wry smile tugging at the corners of my lips. "I'm just doing what needs to be done, my friend. After everything we went through with Frederick, I couldn't sit idly by and let others fall victim to the same kind of predatory behavior." Cora, ever my stalwart ally, chimed in with a proud grin. "My aunt, the unstoppable force for good. Who would have thought your retirement would lead to all this?" We shared a laugh at that, the warm camaraderie a balm for the lingering aches and pains of our recent ordeal. But even in those light-hearted moments, I never lost sight of the larger mission at hand. The real work began in earnest a few months later, when our grassroots efforts caught the attention of the local authorities. Before I knew it, I found myself sitting across the table from the district attorney herself, outlining our plans for a comprehensive community outreach and education program. "What you've accomplished so far is admirable, Miss Allen," the DA said, her eyes shining with a mixture of respect and determination. "But we can take this even further. With the right resources and support, we can implement preventative measures on a much larger scale, protecting vulnerable populations across the entire county." And just like that, our humble neighborhood watch evolved into something far grander, a full-fledged initiative with backing from law enforcement and local government agencies. Suddenly we had access to funding, publicity campaigns, and a platform to reach thousands upon thousands of residents. The days blurred together in a flurry of town hall meetings, educational seminars, and one-on-one consultations. I found myself crisscrossing the county, sharing our story and imparting the hard-won lessons we'd learned from our confrontation with Frederick's depravity. And through it all, I could feel the tides shifting, a groundswell of awareness and empowerment rippling through our communities. Elderly residents, who had once been easy targets for scammers and con artists, were now armed with the knowledge and resources to protect themselves. Families were having open and honest conversations about financial security and safeguarding their assets. It was during one of our packed community forums that the true impact of our efforts really hit home. As I scanned the sea of faces before me, I saw a tapestry of humanity. Young and old, from every walk of life, united in a common cause, and in that moment, I knew that we had achieved something truly special. This was no longer just about bringing Frederick to justice or settling old scores. This was about creating a lasting legacy, a bulwark against the kind of predatory behavior that had nearly torn our family apart. And as the thunderous applause washed over me, I felt a profound sense of pride and purpose swell within my chest, because in the end, that's what truly mattered. Not the trials and tribulations we'd endured, but the way we had risen above them, emerging stronger, wiser, and more resilient than ever before. We were no longer victims, but warriors, armed with the knowledge and the determination to protect what mattered most, our loved ones, our community, our very way of life. And as I looked out over that crowd, I knew that our work was far from over. But with each life touched, each person empowered, we were building something truly special. A legacy that would endure long after the sting of Frederick's betrayal had faded from memory. A legacy of strength, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to justice and community. A legacy worthy of the Allen name.